bring you on, Dave. And here we go.
I never thought I would see a KURLAN NAISKOS.
From the workshop of the Master of Darkwind Hill.
This object is over 12,000 years old.
Go ahead.
You mean it's complete?
The KURLAN civilization believed that an individual was a community of individuals. Professor, this is an incredible find.
Well, greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Talmud of Trek, Robert Meyer Burnett, and this is our Picard Season 3 after show, the KURLAN NAISKOS, and this is a supplementary episode. People are probably saying, hey, the 10 episodes have aired. Why are you doing more shows? Well, because there's always more to talk about when it comes to Star Trek Picard Season 3. As everyone knows, I was tub thumping for this show months before I saw it, and people thought, "What had I left my senses behind me? Like what people abducted me and said I turned me into a studio shill?" And I was telling everybody, "Oh no, you just wait, because you don't know what's coming." And you know, as somebody who was, I can say, maybe not as enamored of Picard seasons 1 and 2. I, more so than anyone, was shocked at how much I loved Picard Season 3. And, of course, you know him, you love him all the way from thedigitalbits.com, Mr. Bill Hunt. Bill, welcome.
Here's my friend. How
It's
are you?
been great. We have a very special guest with us. I tried to get him earlier. You know, the powers that be. I think he was locked up on Rua Pente doing hard labor in a Klingon prison camp, or at least he was production designing his next show. He's done such a wonderful job, especially on Picard Season 3, from everything from Geordi's office to actually redeeming the KURLAN NAISKOS from the end of Generations. He is production designer, Mr. Dave Blass. Welcome, Dave, to the show.
Thank you guys so much for having me. Sorry I couldn't come on earlier. Literally, it was one of those things that they're like, dude, I'm like the Spider-Man. It's like, dude, you're gonna so spoil something if you go on one of these podcasts. I'm like, I'm not gonna spoil. They're like, you're gonna spoil it. I'm like, I'm not, and I probably would have. I would say, but you know, it was one of those things. You're holding on to that secret for like a year and a half. So you know, inevitably you're gonna say something and be like, oh yeah, no, Borg this or Borg that. Wow.
It's
you
amazing,
know,
it's amazing the secret didn't get out. It's stunning, honestly.
Yeah, but and a great group of people. I think everyone on the crew realized what a special thing we had, and especially once Season 3 hit, people, you know, because we had done as everyone knows, Season 3 right after Season 2. You know, we finished Season 2 on a Friday, started Season 3 on a Monday, so it was holding basically 2 seasons worth. You know, first time we did Star Trek did 20 episodes in decades. So.
No, that's which is amazing. Now, before we get talking about Star Trek, Dave, I'd love to know, how did you find yourself getting into production design?
Honestly, you know, and it all comes full circle. You know, when I was a kid growing up, I was addicted to Star Trek. And then I'd like to say it was Star Trek that got me there, but it was really when Star Wars came out and they had the making of documentaries, because there really wasn't anything on Star Trek. But then with Star Wars, they had these making of documentaries, and they showed the models and the Death Star and all this stuff. And I was like, that's what I want to do. And I remember like sitting there going, who's the guy doing it? And I saw the title, art director, Joe Johnston. I'm like, I want to be Joe Johnston. And that was really my goal. And it was hilarious because I actually got to meet Joe at the premiere of Captain America that he directed. Amazingly talented director, as well as an artist. And I walked up to him, because he's not like a super well-known director. No one was fawning over him. So I went up and started talking to him. I'm like, hey, it's because of you that I'm here. He said, hey, don't put that on me. And he's just such a wonderful, warm fellow. And about a year later, a friend of mine gave me his storyboard book signed by him, and turns out he was a big fan of the show that I was doing, Justified. He's like, you do Justified? I love that show. But yeah, it was. So I did that, and I started working for Roger Corman, the king of all B movies, when I first moved to Hollywood. And it was that thing of if you went to Blockbuster on a Friday night and you couldn't get, one of the Batman movies, you got the fifth version down. Oh, I want to rent Jurassic Park. Nope, you're going to get Carnosaur.
Right. Hey, there's nothing wrong with Carnosaur.
No, the Chopping Mall, and
directed
again,
by Jim Wynorski. Chopping Mall.
I did several Jim Wynorski films, and I think I still to this day I compliment him on his directing and a fun guy to work with and learn from.
Have you ever seen his movie The Phantom Empire starring Raven Delacroix?
I have not. No.
Well, you need to call him up and get him a copy of that. Trust me, you'll thank me later.
Yeah, we did Hard Bounty, a Western, and I have some great stories about that one. But and a Shannon Tweed movie. You weren't anyone in Hollywood unless you had worked with Shannon before. So I did a couple of movies with her. But that was the thing. It was like it was your testing ground. You're working for Roger. He's like, here's $5, some duct tape, and go build me a set. And you learned your craft while getting paid a couple bucks. And I did 10 or so movies for him. The Black Scorpion TV series, and that was really my entry into the world.
Now, I just want to point out that you do have Diane Duane's "My Enemy, My Ally" over your right shoulder, and
I do.
Diane Duane was my first favorite Star Trek novelist. That was her second book after The Wounded Sky.
Yeah, I read those in high school, and I got
so
the hard
good.
copy. Yeah,
I was gonna say that's the hardcover.
Yeah, we named a ship after from the book in season 3 in the massive, everywhere. People are like, are you going to name the ships like you did in season 2? I'm like, I'll name a lot. I'm not going to name them all. But because people are like, well, why not? I go, you'll see. There's lots. It's like Rayman. There's lots and lots.
Well, so how, being already a dyed-in-the-wool Star Trek fan, how did you find your way into the modern Star Trek family, working for Secret Hideout on Star Trek?
I had just been working on a Marvel show, Ghost Rider, and we had been prepping on that for about 6 months. I was on it long enough that I had the show took place on a corn farm. We had planted corn, and it was 10 feet tall before they pulled the plug. And we were shooting at the same studio that they were doing season 1 of Picard. Because I couldn't build as many sets as I wanted, we had all these giant places to build sets and nothing to build on them. So we lent them to Star Trek. So I kind of had a little bit of a knowledge and a working relationship with them. I had met with them a year or so prior and to possibly do work on Discovery. That didn't work out. I went and did the Marvel thing. And then so my name was in the quiver of people. And then I went in for a meeting with Terry Metalis. And it turned out we both went to Emerson College, both knew a lot, same film professors, same friends of people. And it was like all of a sudden there was that connection through the same school. And obviously the fact that I was such a big Star Trek fan, and having just done The Boys and Preacher and a bunch of other, big comic book adaptation type of high concept shows, and the fact that I was Santa Clarita local, so they weren't having to fly someone in. So I think it just kind of worked. But I said, listen, this is my dream job. I am going to put 4,000, not 100%, 4,000% into whatever I do. I go, you don't know enough to know that you don't know enough with this job. I'm here to protect you and to make sure that the nerds, are pacified, because I will make sure that everything is right.
Well, now, during the Berman era of Star Trek, it was always said that they did not want anyone who was a Star Trek fan to work on the show. Like Ron Moore had to pretend that he wasn't a Star Trek fan when he started writing scripts in season 3 of TNG. So you went full bore. You went the entire opposite direction and just you held your Star Trek freak flag high.
Well, it's that thing of going, and I think that there is that thing of going. There's a difference between trying to do something different and then because Picard is a funky one, because Discovery had the advantage of we're doing something new. and we're doing something completely, even though it's like retro, playing off of other things, it's doing its own deal. And the JJ films, they're like, we're doing our own thing. It's kind of this, but kind of different. So, the bridge of the JJ films doesn't look anything like the Enterprise other than the Orient. There's a command chair and this and that. So, but Picard's kind of a direct thread to the past. So you kind of have to know that. And it seems like a simple thing, but getting someone to sit down and watch 7 seasons of a show,
right,
is a bit of a thing. And it's like they kind of need a certain amount of people to know those things. And I think that, even with Next Generation, they were trying to do something new. And it's like the bridge of the D doesn't look like they don't want it to, it's got to look like this. It's like, we want to do something new. And they really did do something new and different. But, at some point you have to have that thread, and, the whole idea of like Easter eggs and stuff like that. It has to be, it can't all be force fed. It has to be integral to the show.
It's actually a question I wanted to ask is, when you get that challenge to design a new bridge of a Federation starship, obviously there is all of that history, and there is, Picard is the 25th century now, and it's got to look more advanced than the 24th century versus the 23rd century. How do you even go about starting that process?
Because the biggest one is technology, and the where I say that is we're trying to advance what they did in, let's just say, Nemesis. So going 20 years more than Nemesis. But the problem is that we, as a culture, have already exceeded that. So if you look at, Picard's desktop computer in The Next Generation was this funky big thing, and you're going, if I put that on a table now, it looks like a joke. That's not. I mean, it's like it should be. In 400 years, it's going to be some crazy holographic weird thing. It would never be what it actually was in Picard. So you run into this thing of going, okay, is it a parallel future, or how do we work the technology into the future so that it doesn't become crazy super future tech, but also is tied to what Picard had. We had a scene in season 2 where we see Picard as a kid. And of course, me being the total, I'm like the nerd that you don't want to have in the room. The producers like it because they're like, go away. Just because I'm like, okay, so should the computer that's in young Picard's room be like that boxy iMac thing that Kirk had in his quarters? Because that would actually be time-wise what makes sense. And they're like, what? Shut up, go away. And it's like, but it was like, you have to have those conversations to kind of go into it, and you have to find a balance. Add to it that we are also coming on the heels of Discovery. So you have the technology that they've done in Discovery, same network, same producers, same audience. So the audience is watching. So our technology has to be more advanced than what was on Discovery, but in tune with what the Picard era. So it was a challenge, to be sure.
Well, I'm curious as to, so obviously you have 57 years now of Star Trek design, and even the bridge. If you go back and you look at the bridge is introduced in the cage, and then the changes made in the first pilot for the original series, which was where No Man Has Gone Before, and then when they finally got into the first production episodes like Charlie X, Corbin White Maneuver, Man Trap, and all that, there was changes, and suddenly, for the very first time, a science fiction show had a design lineage even throughout the first season of the show, because when they decided to split the cage into 2 parts and put it in the menagerie, you now had different uniforms from the cage. You had the bridge had changed a couple of times, and then you had all this technology changing. Things changed. The uniforms changed a little bit in the original series, and then Star Trek: The Motion Picture, and then they changed again in Wrath of Khan, and it kept changing. So now when you get up to where you're at now, how much does the overall lineage of the Star Trek franchise matter? Because also you now have Prodigy, and there is Lower Decks, and how much, and obviously in like Strange New World season 2, we are going to have a crossover between Lower Decks and in live action, or however that's going to work. I'm very curious to see how that works.
Yeah,
How
I
much?
mean,
How do you feel a fealty to the overall design aesthetic of the franchise, or is what you're working on, like as Picard seasons, is Picard the most important thing, like making Picard work on its own, or do you feel you have to serve that larger Star Trek master?
I definitely have to serve the largest Star Trek master, because it's like the living in the Rick Berman era. If you look at the design of Enterprise and Voyager and all those shows, they're a little bit different, but it has the, if you go from one to the other, it has the same design aesthetic. And I think Herman Zimmerman had a lot to do with that. It was his thing, but I think it was that one thing. So clearly, well, people talk about the lighting and the carpet on the floors and stuff. There was a lot of, this is what we do on Discovery. This is what we like on Discovery. Okay, great. New guy coming in. What do you like? Okay, great. We'll start there and we'll do it. But that's a design aesthetic that is across the board in cinema right now. I mean, you watch shows like Game of Thrones or the Batman. They're dark, they're moody, they're cinematic. That's a look right now. If I had said, hey, what do you think about wood grain and carpet on the bridge? Yeah, they would have fired me and I would have gone home and it would have been, a short show. So it's one of those things that you have to serve the overall look of the era. And again, I think that what Andrew Probert did with the design of the D bridge is beautiful, but it does feel like it feels of the time. So I don't know if you designed it like that today, if it just from the jump, if that's what a design you would go for. So my thing was, I wanted to take what had been done in Nemesis, and that was always my thing. I'm like, I want to do Nemesis 20 years later. So it's like you're looking at that bridge, but also kind of giving a little nods, like when we did the Stargazer, the ramps coming down the side, they mimicked the D and the two ramps coming down the side. So it was like the tiers. Obviously, Next Generation Bridge was built for a 4x3 square frame, so it was taller and stacked it a little bit. So with a wide screen, we had to go wider, and the bridge was. And again, I think that a lot of people complained in the second season. They're like, "Oh, the bridge is so big," and then all of a sudden they see the D in season 3 shot with a wide screen, and they're like, "Wow, that feels really big." And it's like, yeah, because if you're using a wide angle lens, it's going to feel wider. So I would try to serve the overall aesthetic of Star Trek, but also the current design aesthetic of Star Trek.
It's interesting that you talked about the lighting on the bridge too being a little bit darker, and that was very much something we saw in the original series movies and in the original in the Next Generation movies, because it has that nautical feel, right? If you go on the bridge of a destroyer or an aircraft carrier, you're going to get that same kind of dark look with a particular kind of lighting that allows people to read the screens easier. And
yeah, and I think Terry was very influenced by Crimson Tide. That was a movie he referenced quite a bit. And again, I think that people forget that Wrath of Khan is very dark. Mm-hmm. It's extremely dark if you go back and the bridge stuff, and it compared to the motion picture. And then as you progress, it gets brighter. But yeah, if you actually go and track the bridge changes and things, it's amazing that it goes from one, and the bridges look nothing like when you look at it in the big picture, especially with the Roddenberry archive thing. You're like, wow, I didn't realize it completely changed from season from 4 to 5 to 5 to 6. Mm-hmm. And, yeah.
One of the great things I think you did too for season 3 was, especially for the Titan, was you brought back the LCARs. You brought back the Akutas, you brought back Doug Drexler, and that whole, which I thought really, and the way you used it, the way that you could update, giving it animation and lighting it up. I mean, it looked fantastic. The bridge of the Titan was beautiful.
Yeah.
So as we're moving from the design of the Stargazer to the Titan, I'm moving from Stargazer to Titan. And guess what? You don't notice the difference, even though it's the same exact thing.
Right.
And that's the joy of it. Is Star Trek is always about reusing things, and I think that it's one of those things. It's like you redress, and you redo things. People were like freaked out. They're like, "Oh my god, we're going to reuse the same ship." I go, "I've already prepped it. There's this thing called the bridge module. You can replace it. I'll tech the bejesus out of it. Let's just do the thing." But we had just finished shooting season 2, like the week before. So it took us 6 months to build the Stargazer. So for season 2, we shot because it was kind of bookended. Episode 1 and episode 10 were shot on the Stargazer. So we shot that all at the very end. So we had barely finished building the Stargazer before we said, "Oh, get rid of that," and now it's the Titan. So we had brought in Mike and Doug and Mike Kukuda, Doug Drexler, months before, and they had developed everything for season 2. And as we were getting it done and putting it on the screen and getting that ready, literally we had 2 more weeks, and then we had to become the Titan. So, and everyone says, "Oh, well, it's, but it's VisFX and you did the thing." I'm like, "Oh, but it wasn't." Because if you go on the bridge of a starship and you look at the 8 million screens we put up, they all have images of the starship on it. They've got deck charts, they've got things, they've got damage control. So we had to integrate all that new stuff for the Titan into all the displays in a matter of not months. It's like, Kirk would say, we had not weeks, but months, hours, but not minutes. But that was my first call, was to Mike Okuda, to Doug Drexler, to anyone who had previously worked on the show, to say, "Hey, I'm taking over the show. Would love to see if you're interested. If not, just say, love your work. If you ever want to drop by, come sign my books. But let's have a conversation." And I know that people have been away from the show, but here's my number, here's my email. The door is open, and a lot of people took me up on it, and it worked out. But it's like, I think that the fans have this idea that there's a room of all the best Star Trek people just sitting there waiting for a phone call, and then they all get up and come into the room, and it's like, well,
there's a movie in that.
Yeah.
So that's
but it's like, I called Mike Okuda, and it's like, "Oh, well, why didn't you come?" Well, I did, but he's on For All Mankind. Well, call Doug Drexler. And it's like, I did. He's on Orville. I go, "Doug, come on, don't play don't do the cover band thing. Come get the band back together." But he couldn't leave the show, and then for good, bad, or indifferent, COVID hit. And all those shows went down, and that really timed out well for us, so that they were able to come over and play with us for a while.
What a great force multiplier, though, creatively. Like,
Yeah.
to harness those guys who had all the knowledge, who had done it back in the day, and to bring those, you get so much more production value on screen in what you're doing then.
Well, you get the next level of stuff and again, it didn't stop there, because then I went to Jeffrey Mandel for graphics. I went, it's like when Worf needed a new blade, the prop guys came to me with their design sketches and stuff. Very cool sketches, very cool. I go, "Did you think to call Dan Curry?" And they were like, "Well, no, what we have got." I'm solving the problem before it becomes a problem, because if you design a weapon that isn't cool or this and that, people are going to come compare it to that. Just call Dan, and then you're done. And then you don't have to worry, because then whatever weapon's designed, it's going to be perfect. And then we call Dan, he worked with Michael and and then we have a brand new weapon. So it was like that. We used like the Klingon cloaking device was a Rick Sternbach design from the Klingon, the Haynes manual.
Right.
So we literally were like looking at that. We're like, "Oh, let's do that. Let's give Rick a nod for that." So again, we tried to go as deep as possible on a lot of things. We brought in, Todd Marks, who had done video playback on several of the films, and Jim Martin came in and again, a lot of these people would come in. Darren Doctorman would be in. Then Darren's like, "I'm gonna go remaster the motion picture." I go, "All right, goodbye." And then we got swamped, and it's like, "Hey, Alan Kobayashi, you want to come in and do graphics for a while?" And he's like, "Yeah." Okay. So it's whoever could, everyone knew, there was an opportunity to get one more play at the game, and we were able to get a lot of people in to help out.
Well, it's a pretty small and close-knit community too of these people, these creative people, right?
And they all know each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and then it's like you're doing a giant marketplace, and Jeffrey's going, oh well, here's all the stuff I did for Enterprise. Here's this, and going through, and he still has the files, and we, it's like when you're having these conversations about, oh, the Klingon writings, got to be correct. It's like the people to call, and I'm like, oh, Mark Okrand, I'm gonna hit him up and make sure that the Klingon's correct because I have his actual Klingon book on the language of Klingon.
Let me ask you, okay, from a geek, as a Star Trek novel fan yourself, I got to ask you a geeky question because I'm tired of, I'm a huge canonista and a big nitpicker. But when people come at me, having read books like the Best of Trek essays that were always trying to explain inconsistencies in the Trek canon, and I love that. So when you read the script and it says, okay, we're gonna take the cloaking device out of the Bounty, and then I've got people going, well, how could 100-year-old cloaking device actually mask a ship? Wouldn't they be able to immediately see it? Now, my initial thing would be, why would anybody be looking for a 100-year-old cloaking device, the energy signature of a 100-year-old cloaking device? It's not like that anybody would immediately be signaling or looking for there's no reason to think that anyone is using a 100-year-old cloaking device around Daystrom Station. There's no reason for that to anybody to think that. So when something comes in on the script in a script, and you being the uber nerd fan you are, do you have to then figure out a way in your own mind before you start working on something to justify what the writers have given you?
Oh yeah, or you can send a little ping of, what about this, or could we add a line of dialogue here, or this or that, and it happened a couple of, it happened a lot, but but it would be like little stuff, and then, but there's so much of it that people don't. There was things that, like, I'm sitting there going, this is going to be a big deal, and then no fans noticed it, and I'm like, I'm going to shut up forever. I'm like, literally I got into an argument with Jonathan Frakes and Terry Metalis, going, this is going to be a big deal. This is going to be a big deal. No one noticed it. I'm like, right. I'm going to go sit in the corner and feel nerd shame.
You've got to tell us what a couple of those things are.
Yeah, what was an example?
Oh,
of
I'm
something?
not going to say it because no one noticed it. So, but like there was something in like season 2, like Rios is like, there's a battle above Vulcan, and then like 20 minutes later he's back at Earth, and I'm like, my inner 12-year-old self is sitting there going to be so excited that I'm going to stand up in a production meeting and tell people the actual time travel, how long it would take to travel from Vulcan to Earth, and it wouldn't be 20 minutes and this and that. And I go, well, as seen in Star Trek 4, which is not accurate, but it took less time, but it wasn't 24. Yeah.
One of the things I got to say, one of the things I loved about Picard season 3 harked back to something Mike Akuda told me about the first season of TNG. And in the episode 11001001 in the first season of TNG, you see they reuse the elements of space dock from Star Trek 3. And it's the first time, and Mike went in to tell the producers, to say to Bob Justman, the Enterprise D wouldn't fit inside space dock, so can we maybe have like a docking ring on the outside of space dock and have the Enterprise D pull up to it? And Bob Justman said to Mike, look, Mike, no, we have this footage. We can comp in our model of the Enterprise D with this footage and have this beautiful space station adding to the lore, or we can not use it at all. What would you rather do? And Mike said Bob Justman was right. And then suddenly the Enterprise D fits inside space dock, and you could say it's not the exact same space dock, or is it? I mean, maybe we just never knew that you're on the other side of space dock when the Enterprise comes in. Maybe there's a much bigger door on the other side that we just didn't see.
We just never saw it.
And then they reuse that stuff again. But it tickled me to death seeing the docking ports on the outside of the original space dock, because it finally gave Mike Akuda a question he asked in the original first season of TNG, and you guys did it. You guys, and then now I've got to ask about, like, as a Starship fanatic. When I first saw that scene, I'm like, what were the discussions like about which starships were going to be docked at the Fleet Museum? Did you get to weigh in on that? Who decided which ships were there, and who decided to put Doug Drexler's NX-01 refit in there?
I think mostly the VisFX guys, because that we were way deep into the how much money do we have and what can we afford.
Right.
So it really went, okay, what does the script mention? Bum, 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 bum. And that was, okay, there's that. And then what other ships do we have? And we kind of put it out there that it would be this and this and that, and made some suggestions. And then, but the NX-01, I mean, it's such a, it was somewhat featured in season 2. Young Picard is putting together a model, and it's the NX-01. So we tried to do a lot of things to make certain little fan things canon as best we could, and that was just one of those fun things. But that was all the amazing VisFX team, because I think that they are really the unsung heroes of season 3, because you just look at that and it's like, I remember sitting in the meetings and just watching their heads explode when Terry's explaining what he wants, and they're like. And then not only did they do it, they took it to another level. I mean, there's just like, there's stuff in there that I'm going, I would have asked for that. Like in Daystrom, they're out on that little walkway when they find Data saying, and then but there's this pan up shot that shows like that they're in. I'm like, not in the script, not a thing. I'm like, I watched it for the first time when I saw that effect. I went, damn, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm like, because if I asked for that, it's like $8 billion and everyone would freak out. But they reached deep and delivered on so many levels. So the ships, the thing, I mean, the same thing with the fleet of ships. It's like, I had put together the deal in season 2 with the video game company, the Star Trek Online, to solve the challenge that they had at the end of season 1, which I wasn't there for. And it was like, okay, well, ships cost money. They take time to develop? How can we solve these problems and still get cool ships? Star Trek Online. It also created a synergy that I thought was missing in the Star Trek world, which is there's thousands of people who play that game and it's set in the same time period. Why would you not try so when I reached out to those guys, I said, what are your 10 most popular ships, and let's do the thing. And that really worked out.
Another thing that
because it makes it feature film quality, right? And when you look at those scenes, you're not just looking at sort of cookie cutter. It's every single starship is the same one. You can clearly see that there's like a dozen different starship designs there. And as a fan, like as a longtime fan, you just look at that and you just geek out. You can't help it.
And people would be like, oh, well, this, and it's like you get like 50%, 75% of the people like, oh my God, that's so cool that they're using this ship because the people play the ship. And then people who don't know it, they're like, oh, I don't like this ship. I go, but it's a cool ship. Those ships are undeniably cool ships. There's not like a gray area. It's like they're well thought out, they're designed, and they're designed by people who love Star Trek. And that's what I loved about that. So for me, those were win-win. So when it came to the space dock and the museum, it was really what can VisFX do for us and make this work and whatnot.
Speaking of ships, another person that you got involved that I was really surprised was Bill Krause. I was a big fan of. I've been looking at. I watch model building, starship model building on YouTube the way other guys watch pornography. I mean, I'll be honest. I could sit there and watch for hours somebody airbrushing an Aztec pattern onto a starship hull. And I was a big admirer of Bill Krause's starship designs, the same way that Next Generation or the Star Trek Online, I really liked a lot of the starship designs, like you said. And it was interesting to see him come up with things like the Titan and the Intrepid, which were based on his previously existing designs. I guess Terry had seen them. Had you seen them?
Yeah, so Terry, going into season 3, and again, can't stress enough, so Terry had gone away. Left season 2, and we're dealing with space launch, the Europa space launch, and Borgs and running around Chateau Picard and shootouts, and the old Picard, and again, it's the dumb stuff that no one wants to think about, but like literally was going on. When you finish season 2 of Picard, you're in this, old abandoned, crappy chateau. And the first scene in Star Trek, the season 3, it's a big, beautiful, brand new chateau. So all that had to be restored, redone, rething within a matter of weeks. So we're doing all that stuff and doing the ships, just trying to get the Stargazer going. And then Terry says, "Oh, we're doing a new ship." I'm like, and he's like, "I want to show you something. Want to know what you thought?" And then he pitched me Bill's Titan. And I was like, "Okay, I like it." I go, "The question is, do you like it?" And he goes, "I love it." I go, "Then I love it too." I go, "I like it, and I love it more that we can get moving on it and start adapting it and making tweaks and changes." He's like, "I think the nacelles need to be upgraded." And he with the idea of, after the destruction of the Planitia shipyards, that they would go with something more of a nacelles that were more common, so that if one broke down, you could share resources and things. So we went with the idea that the Titans nacelles and the Stargazers nacelles were similar. So we were like, okay, we'll adapt that. And that allowed Doug Drexler to get working right away on the Titan to create the shapes and the things, because instantly that had to go to the playback people to develop all the graphics and then everything that needed to go on to. Mm-hmm. And then on top of that, Terry says, "Okay, and I need the Helios, I need the Shrike, I need a space dock, I need the fleet," and it just went on. I was like, and like, "But you like the Titan?" I'm like, "Okay, so yes," with at some point you take yes for an answer. And then he's like, "Oh," and then the Intrepid came in, and it was fun. When he mentioned the Intrepid, I get so excited because the Intrepid was my ship when I was a kid. I had I showed it. I had the Intrepid, the military, the naval cap, and I just loved the ship from the original series episode. So I was excited to do that, and I thought that Bill's ship was really unique and really different, and
it's really cool.
It's a phenomenal design.
Yeah, so it's cool. It hadn't been done before, and it kind of also tied into the Titans, so that and again, our idea with that was that even going back to the Stargazer, we were looking at like the Ford GT40, and it's like the old race car that then Ford redid the new one. But if you look at them, it's like the Dodge Charger or Dodge Challenger.
Yeah, of course.
They had that similar. You look at it and you go, yeah, it's the upgraded version of that. Same feeling, give you the same vibe. But that was the idea with those ships.
The thing that struck me about the Intrepid especially is how expressive that ship was from the front view. That shot where it rises up and it's on fire. But it's like,
again, that's where I'm telling you, the VisFX guys deserve an Emmy.
Yeah,
they made, and I go, it's the way that because I'm sitting there going, I do the ship, and it's like, okay, the Intrepid does that. That's them. It's like it's the speed at which it goes. It's the angle. It's like it's brilliant. And it's like Jay-Z and his team just destroyed it. I mean, just brilliant. There's so many brilliant shots in the show that just it's astounding. As a fan of the show, it is just mind blowing.
Oh yeah, they crushed it all season long, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, and also, you still got the feeling they were capital ships. Mm-hmm. The slow moving up. It was so, and it harked back to the Reliant coming around in Star Trek 2 or the Bird of Prey or something from Star Trek 3. One of the things I thought you did a brilliant job at in season 3 was the repurposing of previously existing sets, and like the Shrike Bridge was the lower portion of the La Serena. And I thought, that's what, like you said earlier, that's what Star Trek used to do, was it would repurpose things and make them work. I mean, even the Voyager intermix chamber is the intermix chamber from Star Trek the Motion Picture, because on the Paramount lot, they kept everything.
The transporter room from Star Trek 5 is TNG's. It's the exact same set. They just and you once you realize that, and then you realize the fans didn't care. There's a certain thing. I mean, it's like, but also I knew, in working with Terry, it's like I knew where he was. and he was not he wasn't in friendly territory. He's sitting there going in every single day, going to battle, throwing. I am trying to do a monumentally bigger show than we can, and he knew it. So it's like when he would come to me and say, we don't got it. Figure it out. Do the best you can. I need a bad guy ship. And originally it was a view screen. It's just a view screen shot. And then it kind of got bigger. And it was like, so I just wandered around the lot looking, like, because it wasn't even so much that we didn't have any place to put it. And we had, we had the Helios down on one of the stages. We had the 10-4 bar on one of the stages. And again, the great reuse of a set that's sitting there. It's like, no, we'll make use of that. Does it make sense? Yep, of course it makes sense. It's like we're going to use it because it's sitting there, and it's a great reuse of
right.
That's how to save money. It's smart writing. And so the only thing we had was, and we had Worf and Raffi. They had their District 6, but then when they get done with that, they're like, fucks it around on La Serena. But we were like, okay, well, can we keep them upstairs? And then the only downstairs was the only thing. I'm like sitting there just looking. I'm like, okay, let's do the thing. And it really went back to like the Roger Corman of going, okay, I got to turn the same room into 5 different things over and over again, but use just paint with a big brush. And it's like, how can we make very graphic, very things? And I used this technique when, like, literally we were at the thing. There was this background, and it's just window screen, crinkled up, and then you pull it apart, and then you uplight it, and it gives it this weird metallic glow to it. And we just put it behind some little cutout screens. And I said to the lighting guys, I go, make it look dark and moody like everything else, but cooler with a lot of smoke.
One of the most interesting examples of that from the past is the bridge of the Katinga class battle cruiser, the Klingon cruiser from the motion picture, then becomes the torpedo room of the Enterprise in Star Trek II, right? With those same angled girder shock absorber things. And it just works when it's done. It just works.
Yeah, but I mean, you literally, I mean, that's one second. Terry got mad at me because I actually pointed out in a behind the scenes thing that we read. He goes, if you hadn't said it, no one would have known. I'm like, they know. I'm like, I'm like, then figure it out. But
he always worries about that stuff. He shouldn't worry.
But literally, it's like, just because to show, that was the gimme. If you go and look at the Shrike, the consoles that the guys are typing, the front main guys are typing on, that's the same console that was in the Helios that they're sitting in. The side monitors that are in there also pulled. So there was nothing new from there except for the chair.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you about that chair, because that chair is fucking awesome. Yeah. And Amanda Plummer made the most of that chair.
Well, what an amazing... Talk about a person that is everything you would hope they would be and more. Just getting to work with her, because I was a huge fan of hers from everything, but the Fisher King, for me, is just an amazing fan. And she just... But, so, obviously, her father, was famous Legacy.
Cry Havoc?
And... So she says to, and she's like, Terry's like, well, she has some thoughts on her chair. I go, okay, let's talk. And she's like, I'm going to be stuck in this, but I want to like be able to play in it. I want to lounge in it. I want to maybe put my feet up in it. So I want it to have a little bit more, I don't want it to constrict me. So I worked with her actually designing the chair, and she's like, can it spin around? I'm like, oh, can it spin? Cry Havoc, and like, yes, it will spin. And then from there, I added a little knot, the upper thing, and we just kind of played with it. And then she came and she looked at it, and I'm like, go to it. And then we beefed up the padding a little bit so she wasn't sitting as far deep in it. And then she just got into it, and
Now, when you're making this chair for her, did you, your composer, the great Mr. Barton, he explained to me that Terry basically co-composed the score with him, as they worked together. When you were doing a chair like that, did Terry have to come in and sit in it and approve it?
No, I think Amanda was more, especially with that one, she was more involved in it than anyone. And I think it was more, I think that set was kind of like Terry knew that he said, here, dude, I understand what I've done to you. Just do something. And
Now,
so
do you welcome that? Do you welcome that freedom, or is that
Oh
is
yeah,
that
it's a great freedom until they walk on the set and go, dude, this is shit. But to his credit, he almost never did.
But how great that you allowed the actors to have a little ownership of
Well,
these
also
things
it's like
too.
it's not I try and do that with everyone, and I'd reach out to people and say, what would you like in your quarters, or what do you see something of that, and Todd Stashwick mentioned the knives. That was his idea, that he would have knives, and it was just his thing. And we added that, but to do that, and then to see her really use it, and it's like to watch, and it just, and I went up to her at the premiere party, and of course, because of COVID and everything, I had never actually seen her, or she had never seen me, and we never connected. And I just said, I just wanted to thank you for allowing it. And she just, tears, two of us both, like, oh my God, that meant so much, and that for my father, and this and that. And it was just like, and to have that moment with such someone of her caliber, it was amazing.
Yeah, it was incredible. And also, I got to ask you about the District 6, the Metalis B, that set, or Metalis Prime set, that exterior set, you built it up at Santa Clarita. What a cool set that was.
So we had a set in season 2, that, again, me coming in, off the bench as the draft pick, I had to, like, every set for the season 2, I'm like, oh, we got to make it this. And we did this set for like a 1-page scene where Elnor wakes up in Okinawa in the dystopian dark world. And we did this whole set that they ended up shooting for a page, but everyone was like, oh my God, it was phenomenal. And it had the Blade Runner vibe that they wanted. And they said, when he's like, yeah, let's do that, but just like bigger. And I'm like, and we were going to do it on the back lot, and it was going to be great. But then with COVID, and there was other shows shooting up there, and it became this huge thing. And there was finally like, okay, we can't do it. We actually have to go build the whole thing on location. So we had to go to the Iraqi village from American Sniper. And we turned that into this District 6. And it was literally, that was another set where we're like, okay, we don't have enough money to do it. And I'm like, but we do, but it's going to be dark and shadow. This is the dark and shadow thing. And we're just going to take every bit of things that we've already built and reconfigure it and paint it, a different color. And it's going to look beautiful, and just trust us. And that's, what we did. It's like every little thing from, Sneed's Palace is all something that was used in some other episode. We just kind of reconfigured it and built as little as possible.
Wow.
Well, you talked about, your time at Corman, and again, working on Star Trek. One of the things about season 3, from a production standpoint, and what Terry was able to do, and basically essentially turn it in, other than District 6, it was essentially a bottle show. I mean, most of the show is set on the Titan, other than when you jump out to Daystrom Station or the Ilios or Metalis, which I thought was a great use. It was a great way to amortize the cost, and it felt the most Star Trek of the 3 seasons of Picard because it was so ship-bound. It was so ship-based, and I thought you guys really did a great job with the use of corridors, and the use of, whether it was someone's cabin or the ready room, or whatever you want to call it. You guys did a great job. Did you feel that those constraints they made it so you were able to do your job better, or you were able to, because the interior of the Titan looked great, whether you were in engineering where Stashwick was fixing the nacelles. That was a really cool set, even though it was contained. I believed it. You felt like it was part of the Next Generation universe. And how much of that was that a hard thing for you to deal with?
Well, the challenge, and it's funny because a number of people have used the reference. It's like a bottle episode.
Yeah.
And I'm like, the challenge is that only works if you have a bottle, and when you all of a sudden, because it's that thing. It's like, oh well, it's like next gen when you have an episode, you shoot all on the existing sets, but we didn't have any existing sets. There
Right.
was, if you go back to season 2, there was just the bridge and the observation lounge. So in a very short amount of time, we're building a transporter room and a sick bay and corridors and crew quarters and the nacelle room and this room and oh wait, Shaw needs to have a dining hall, and you're like, who? Oh, and then by the way, we're going to go to Daystrom, and then we're going to go to District 6
And
and
shuttlecraft
then
interiors and
and then we're going to go onto the Shrike. Oh, and then we got to run around on the Shrike because there's the cells. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, the bottle. I'm going to need a bottle to do this bottle episode.
yeah, big of whiskey.
Yeah. So, but I think the brilliance of Star Trek is really shown, and again, the brilliance of Terry and the editors and thing. If you watch the finale, there's a scene right at the end after they come back, and they go from they go to a scene of Data and Troy doing their psychoanalysis, and then they cut directly to, I think they go from Raffi and Worf, it's Raffi talking to her son, and then Worf comes in, and then they go right to Data. It's the same room. There was only one crew quarters, and it's the whole idea of like, normally it's like, oh well, you cut from one set, then you go away and redress, but you're cutting in within a same set, and that crew quarter got redressed, but the idea of like walls moving, nothing, and you're just sitting there going, if you do it smartly and people are paying attention to the characters and the emotion, all this stuff isn't really that important. And I think that for me, that was the look of season 3, the Titan. I'm like, I just want you to feel like you're on a starship that you recognize.
Yeah.
It's like, if you go into the transporter room, I don't want you to look at the transporter room. It's a transporter room. It's there. It should look like what you expect it would look like. And then they leave. And you're not going, ooh, did you see that transporter room? It's like, no, it was a transporter room. Sick bay should look like a sick bay that you look like it was a set in Voyager that you've already seen 10 times before. And if you notice it, I've done my job wrong. So, yeah, it was good, but it was like, everyone said it's a bottle episode. I'm like, oh, we had the brig, and that was the whole thing. And, yeah, so.
Well, I guess we have to get to the most unexpected thing, maybe the coolest thing, the thing that made grown men cry, was your recreation of the Enterprise D bridge. Mm-hmm. When did you first find out that was in the offing, and did you balk at it, or did you say, we can't do this?
Yeah, I always get those in people like, well, can you do this? I'm like, the question is whether I can do it. The question is, can you afford it?
Right.
And that's the thing. And my deal was, Terry's like, okay, we got to do it. I'm like, well, here's a bunch of ways we could do it, and here's the way we should do it. I'm like, if we're going to do it, and Terry's like, no, we got it. It's got to be right. And with his backing, we just went, okay, it's going to be right. We're going to do this. And then it got to that thing where we're like, okay, they said we could do it. Let's do it. And there's a fine line between let's build the bridge and let's recreate a museum quality replica. And we slid the second one in, which is like, oh, we're going to rebuild the bridge. And our goal was then to do it exactly right. And then what we did was Liz Kloskowski, who was the art director on that set, just became a maniac for the minutia. Capturing frames, looking at photos, looking at every single thing. And then, as we talked earlier about the evolution of the bridge sets, the D evolved over 7 seasons, changed all the time, even right up to the Generations movie. And we had to have that discussion of which version of the Enterprise are we restoring? And, because logically it should be because if Geordi restored the crashed version, it should be the wider version, which was seen in Generations. But, my thing, and Terry quickly agreed with me, is that it should be the most noticeable one. It's like you're restoring an old car. You restore it back to kind of stock original, but it's like, But if you have like a Shelby Mustang, it's like you don't restore that back to stock. It's like you make it the Shelby. So that was our whole idea. It's like we're gonna go season 7, the last one that everyone remembers, but we're gonna do it exactly right.
Wow.
It was about 3 months, but not nearly enough time. But we got it done. But again, in the middle of a COVID pandemic and with 8 million other things going on, it was but supply problems and finding the right carpet and again, there wasn't when we left the show, we left a giant binder of every single detail of the rebuilding of the Enterprise, so that in history, if anyone needs to do it again, here's how to do it. But we didn't have that, so it's like there was no the walls were Benjamin Moore color 5525. None of that. It was like you were looking at old photos, old video, and then we get into the whole minutia of and Mike Okuda just getting to nerd talk with him and going, okay, we want the Alcars to look like not what they were, but what they looked like on camera, because the Alcars were backlit pieces of gel, but they were backlit with either neon or fluorescent lights. And anyone who knows lighting, that will change the color of whatever's in front of it. Mm-hmm. So what the color of the gel, we knew what color that was, but what we didn't, there was no, how do you tell what color it became on screen? And then we had to go match to that color and make sure that everything looked the same. And then, little things like we added vignetting around the edges of the Alcars, so that it felt like how it felt in the series, where there would be a light fall off because of the way the fluorescence lit it. And then in a lot of instances, we were using actual monitors. So even though, it was a monitor, it could be exactly bright, exactly perfect. We added that vignetting in everywhere, so it just felt like it used to. But now we can do motion. And Todd Marks, our video playback guy, went out and found square monitors, which we were like, because they were square blocks and whatnot. And so it was a great team effort of everyone going to the next level. And construction, I mean, I always point to it. It's like the paint grain on the wood grain on the horseshoe matches exactly, because the guys got so excited about our attention to detail. We have this giant wall of inspiration of photos and screen caps and details, and they'd go look at it every day when they're working on it. Oh no, this thing does this, and they match the number of rings on the grain exactly where the knot is, and it's just it's just spot on, because they knew everyone got excited because they're like, no, they felt like they were a part of something. And the more that we encouraged it, this wasn't a set, this was doing something important, and then people got excited about the idea of it. And then the more people got excited about it, the more people realized that this was something special. And
I have to say, one of the coolest things for me was when the crew comes on board the bridge and it powers up, and the L-Cars just goes duk, 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 really subtly. And then when they powered it down at the very end, it was the same thing. And it was, it's such a little thing, but it was so perfect. It just felt so right. And it gave that drama to the bridge coming alive, right?
Yeah. And for me, it was like, I had a friend who worked on Seinfeld, not on Seinfeld, but on Curb Your Enthusiasm. And one season they did a Seinfeld reunion, and they said they rebuilt the diner and Jerry's apartment. And they said they had the first scene where they all come together in the diner, and the cast all walked on set, and they were like, oh, this is so cool. And then had like a pause, and they started crying, because it was like they realized the time that had passed and the memories, and it was like that weird thing. And for me, that was these people that we idolize walking onto our creation and seeing the effort that we had put into it, and seeing how, it was like watching LeVar pull out his little chair at the engineering console. And it's like, there was no reason. There was no scene where he sits at the chair. There was no reason to have the chair there in the first place. It's a built-in. It's like, you won't see it, one thing, save the money. But no, we built it, and he was like, pulled it out, and it was just like watching these people like in awe of what we had created, and to do it one last time. It was was phenomenal.
How long did it take to build the Enterprise D bridge?
It was 3 months roughly.
Wow, for 2 days worth of shooting, right?
Yeah, roughly. It was a thing.
Did
And,
you did you know, like they've got the licensed James Cawley has this licensed Trek set tour in Ticonderoga, New York. Did that set get destroyed, or did you ship it off to him?
Well, oddly enough, as we're building it, James is like on Twitter and Facebook saying, we're building our Enterprise D bridge, and here's our progress. And they were building one. And I'm like going, I can't tell them. I can't say anything. And, but yeah, no, it went back it's in storage at the Star Trek archives for future consideration, I hope.
Well, that's
Thank
good.
Goodness. Thank goodness.
So, but yeah, I mean, and the other thing is it was built modular because it's built on a construction mill and then moved up. So, but yeah, I mean, it was something special, and I think that anyone who was there understands it. It was like, for me, it was like being at the Pantheon in Rome, and and like to be standing in that set, it had that thing where you're like, it wasn't just another set. You're standing there, especially when the lights are on and everything. You did not want to leave because you thought, every time you're there, you're like, I'm like in somewhere special. This is, and again, I think that the Titan, Stargazer, any of those sets, they were amazing. But you're on this set and this thing, and it felt like you were somewhere special and had that aura, and the fact that we nailed it so perfectly. And it's like people have picked apart every little thing of every little on any show. I dare anyone to find something we didn't get right on that show. The only person who pointed out something that we didn't get right was Brent. And that was what his first, he walked in, everyone's walking in, and he walks in, he sits down, and his chair didn't swivel the right way. And it was this and that. So, and he was this, and he goes, oh, the chair doesn't do this. And I'm like, oh, really? I'm like, I'm like, oh, I went over and talked to him. So then this was during like them just walking in street clothes and whatever. Then they have to go. They came back, and I go, give it a whirl. And I, because literally I had like 8 people, like it was like a NASCAR thing. Everyone went and took apart the chair, did the thing. So he comes back around and spun around perfect. He's like, oh, that's great. And I'm like, okay, great.
I think one of my favorite moments in all 10 episodes, it's in episode 9 when it's the techno crane shot where the crane is pulling back between con and ops, and the lights are coming up, and the crew is fanning out behind the horseshoe, and the camera pulls back. I even asked Terry, I was like, dude, how many takes did it take to get the lights to come up with the camera move at the same time? He said, well, not many, but it's such a great shot that because of the way that, because you're shooting 4:3 in the original Next Generation, you could never do a shot like that in the original series. You could when you got into the movies, but this shot was sort of unique. It's not something you saw a lot of, but it was done so well, and the blocking of the cast coming out around, fanning out around the horseshoe. I mean, I lost it the first time I saw it. I was just like, oh my god.
Oh, it was like, and I was standing there literally in the view screen. I got like great photos of like, and you're just sitting there going, I can't believe I'm watching this.
Yeah.
And then, and talking about like the longest payoff for a joke in history, after all the discords of season 2 and then all through season 3. Picard walks over to the plaque and he's looking at the thing and he's like, what I really missed the most? The carpet. And it was, for me, it was a year and a half of everyone bagging that the ships should have carpet and the thing. And I'm going, I really want to just say, I miss the carpet, but I'm like sitting there, I can't blow the joke. It's like knowing that the joke is sitting there for a year and a half and you just can't say shit.
I'll tell you something funny. I guess I can admit this now. I can't get in trouble. But I was having lunch with Doug Drexler and some other people. I want to say, I don't know, like almost over a year before the series aired. And Doug was showing me on his phone, he was showing me pictures of the D bridge. And And I go, that's cool. You know, I was like, was that those pictures from Vegas or something? And he's like, nope, they're not pictures from Vegas. And then he wouldn't tell me what they were. And I didn't really put two and two together. And then he kind of hinted at it. I was like, no way. I didn't believe him. You know,
Well,
there's no reason I shouldn't believe him, but he was just like, I'm like, what? Because I worked on the Star Trek experience in Vegas, and I cut the videos that went into the attraction. So I was there when they actually built 2 Enterprise D bridges in the attraction for the ride, and my name was actually on the horseshoe in them. But it was, I think that was a little smaller. I don't know.
Yeah, we looked at there were some surviving pieces, and there's a bunch of things, and that was obviously one of the options. People said, "Well, doesn't that exist?" Nothing exists that you would think. And it's like, and even when they did, and we looked at, so like we had like one of the bridge chairs in Terry's office, and I'm like, "Oh, okay, let's use that." And then all of a sudden, you look at it, and you're going, "That's not right. It's
right.
It's like completely not shaped right, and this and that," and you're going, "Huh." And then all of a sudden you realize it's like, if we're gonna do it, we have to do it. And like we got into looking at the right carpeting and the right material for the captain's chairs, because it has four different leathers and fabrics on the captain's chair, and you're like going, okay, it needs to be the right color, texture, and sheen for each of those things, and they have to work. And it's a lot of everything has got to work. And it's like it's funny, you look at some of these people, and like I've had people tweet me going, yeah, your bridge is wrong, so you look at this photo. I go, yeah, that's from Vegas, that's not the actual bridge.
Right.
And so I'm like, yeah, because look at this. I'm like, oh, we know, it's like, and but that's the thing, it's like even the cast sitting there and watching Will Wheaton go up to his console and be able to, and he's like, I can still do it and do all that different things. But even better is the playback guys were able to animate the screen. So if you watch Data, he's actually following the pattern, and it's all people are like, oh my god, you guys did touchscreens. You're like, not quite, but
Yeah, which it was amazing, and seeing those animated L cars, that's just something they couldn't do back in the day. I mean, it was just something they couldn't do. Justin Toner, who's one of our moderators here, says, I wanted to thank Dave, the Akutas, and the entire team for the amazing job in rebuilding the Enterprise D bridge. It hit me in the feels. Bravo, sir.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it hit all of us, and I think. And again, it was what was kind of challenging it. And when I say this to all fans is that, imagine doing that and the feeling that everyone had on that moment. And the same people who built that set, the same people who designed it, did all that work, they also did season 2. So like when people are saying, oh, season 2 wasn't this and that, it's like, we all did season 2 and season 3 back to back. Put all of our heart and passion and everything into it, and then it's like, so it's hard when people say, oh, it's like, well, we didn't like season 2. It's like, well, we all tried, we did, everyone did our best, and it's like, it's that thing of, it's like your favorite sports team. It's like we're all the players on the team. It's like we lost the thing. We didn't do what you like. We all thought we did great stuff, and in the end, people may have not have liked this or that, but it's like, we know that they like the starship we designed because everyone loves the Titan. So
how big was your team, by the way?
I got to say like 150 people.
Wow.
So and again, it's massive because and then what everyone went through. It's like, you sit there and you look at the Enterprise D, and we shot that in March of 2022. In January 2022, coming out of the holiday, because it's in the page, it's not a secret, we had 50 people test positive for COVID. And now no one was anywhere near the set. It was the drive-through. You just came out of holidays, and everyone
right.
And they're like, oh, nope, you go home and then go home and we'll give you test results. And then 50. But people are like, oh, well, no, that's 50 people who are trained and are in the middle of a project who aren't coming to work for 2 weeks.
Right.
and then we had another shutdown, and it's like that's every time someone this pod popped, so that's like the people working on the horseshoe not working on the horseshoe for 10 days.
Oh man.
Oh
So and
God.
you couldn't, and it'd be one of those things. It's like there's nothing you can do. You just keep rolling, keep moving forward, and but it was like every single day, everyone putting forth the best effort under the most challenging things. So it was it was big. And then you look at we get the Borg cube, doing the District 6, the Daystrom, and it's like everything everyone just putting their hearts into it, and I'm just so proud of what everyone did for 20 episodes.
James Wallace says he works in the industry and is a viewer of the channel. Says, Dave, love your work from you and your staff this season. Also, you have a fun Twitter page.
I walk the fine line between getting yelled at for oversharing and because people are like, oh, well, what if we want to do a book? I go, if I pump up the book, it's like they will go buy the book. It's like, that's why bands go out and put a couple songs out on YouTube for free.
Yeah.
Then you go and buy the rest of the album. It's
Frankly, your Twitter feed is the best reason to go buy a book on the production design, honestly.
So
what is now what I wanted to ask, other than the Enterprise D bridge recreation, what is the thing that you are most excited to work on, or the thing you're most proud of, or the thing that was, the secret thing that you got to make happen for the season that you're very proud of, other than the Enterprise D?
It's a tough one because there's so much of it, and again, a personal thing for me. I go back. I'm really proud of the Stargazer because even though the bridge became the Titan, I think the exterior of the Stargazer looks exactly like I would hope it would look like. It looks like a Federation starship that is 20 years in the future from what we saw, and it's a great looking design. The interior design and everything about it is, because again, that I had more control over than the Titan, which was basically, Bill had already done it. So we had worked with, because that was a monumental deal, because if you think about it, no one had seen a new Federation starship since the Enterprise E. So it's like that was a big thing, like setting the tone. This is what the bridge is going to look like, all the little things, details. So it's like I'm really proud with that. And then I just, the idea, like something like as simple as the transporter room, just that it felt like, all the actors just walk in, no one like, okay, yeah, this, and there wasn't like ooh, look at this cool set. I'm like, I don't want people to look and go, ooh, look at this cool set. I just want it to feel like it's in the world, and I think it was believable, and that that it has all those tones in that moments, and that we were able to do that, and on so many different levels of things, and it's just that everything had the feels. Something as simple as the new space dock, James Chung's design, I think is perfect. It feels like an upgraded version of the original one from Star Trek 3, and yet it feels new, it feels different, but there's that lineage to it, and it doesn't feel like an out of place. And every little element that we did, and something like the Shrike feels like, and it's so hard. I want to say so hard to do it, but it's not. It's like it's knowing what is a Star Trek ship versus a Star Wars versus a Babylon 5, or just it's like it feels like it's in the Star Trek world, and yet it is an iconic ship. And to do that all on top of everything else in such a short amount of time, because again, everything was so front loaded with the Helios and the Shrike and the Titan, and to basically do a movie in a matter of weeks, and to do it as well as we did with as many of the people. And my biggest regret of the whole experience is that COVID screwed us, and we never had the office environment that you always hear about. Everyone worked from home, so it's like we never ever had everyone in the office. In fact, I think Mike Okuda came to the stage maybe 5 times.
Hmm.
John Eaves started when we started the show. He was in the office. I used to walk into his office and steal, his drawings in between, at lunch when he wasn't looking, and then he worked for the rest. So I mean, I have 8,000 photos on my phone where I'm holding my finger up to an L card, going, okay, the font size needs to be bigger, or the graphic is too small because everyone, Jeffrey was working from home. The guys who were creating the playback were working from home. So we didn't have that collaboration in one place that I think would have really elevated it even further, or just made it more fun. But
it's extraordinary that you were able to pull it all together given those circumstances and those challenges. In the time you did.
Very adept at Zoom and meetings and things of that nature. But it was you just lost the camaraderie, I think, quite a bit. To hear about when you talk to Doug and Mike and Denise and how they used to have the bullpen and do all the stuff and all the craziness, and it's like we just didn't have that aspect of it.
Rob mentioned something earlier that I wanted to ask about too. It's not enough just to design the technology, but especially the Titan nacelle control room, and also the area where the cloaking device was installed and stuff. I love the way you designed the technology behind the technology. So when Shaw is working kind of under the hood, he's pulling like components apart, and like even that stuff was completely believable.
It was really cool.
Yeah, and actually that table is just that was another one that Liz did. It worked great in the show, but we're like, oh my god, it did so much more stuff. Like the whole top was all mechanical. It was raised up. It was so that you could go in there and lower the cloaking device into the thing, and it did all. And we never got around to do it. But it was that fun thing. But again, here I'm gonna get on Terry Pezza. No one knows that that's the transporter room. And it's like, wait, what? Wow. It's like literally that, but the window that I'm like, oh, that window is going to look into the cell chamber. We'll do a green screen. And they're like, we don't have the money. I'm like, oh, okay. But that we just dropped a wall right in front of the pad where the transporter room is. And if you look at it, you go, oh yeah, that makes sense. That's why the room's so small. It's because that's all we had. And we were, it's the make something look like something else really quickly.
But that's what you do now. You have to do that, and that's where the Corman School of Movie Making probably served you very well. I mean, anyone who knows about like when they were making Battle Beyond the Stars, you had James Cameron. They went and got like McDonald's Big Mac, the styrofoam.
Told me that. So actually, and then I had to do that. There's a big round disc that James Cameron used on Battle Beyond the Stars in one of the sets. And I reused it because a friend of mine kept it from Rogers, and we reused it in District 6. So I'm like, yes, the Corman experience continues.
Wow. I have to. I've got my Saint X-Men of the Valkyrie figure.
Oh, I love that.
I don't know why it's just sitting here, but it is. I'm a huge fan of Battle Beyond the Stars.
Live long, fly fast, and have a great ending.
Yep. Raygun Media says, will there be a making of or a production art book soon? And throw in a slipcover for Rob. Will there be? I think I read that there was the Art of Picard.
Yes, the Art of Picard book is John Fordham is doing it, has done it. It was going to come out in May, and now I heard it's pushed back to September. I
think it's Joe Fordham. Yeah. He's great because he's a longtime contributor to Cinefex magazine. Yeah. So he'll do a fantastic job.
He's been I'm not directly involved in it, but he's been sending me stuff, making sure that people are credited properly, and from what I've seen, it's going to be great.
And it covers all 3 seasons.
I don't know.
Okay.
Again, I'm not really involved in it, but it's being done. It's the most important thing, and I think that's. But from what I see, it's going to be good. But so I'm guessing it would only make sense to cover all 3 seasons.
V writes in and says, I love season 3 better than most of the Next Generation. Well, there you go.
Yeah. Well, I told Jonathan Frakes, I said, episode 4 is probably one of my favorite episodes of all Star Trek. I mean,
Yeah.
It's the best Riker, and he's the best in front and behind the camera.
Yeah, it was incredible.
And the end of that episode has such a great flourish too. It just shifts in such a beautiful way that is pure Next Generation.
Yeah,
took me by surprise when I watched it.
Yeah.
It was everything I hoped to do with Star Trek in that one episode. It was just like, and just imagine sitting there getting to work with Jonathan Frakes on a daily basis. I mean, he, of all the people say, oh, did you get to meet the cast? I'm like, I met people. I worked with Jonathan Frakes,
right?
Because because he directed in season 2. So, but when you're working with the director, you're working with him every single day, 12 hours a day. So I got to work with him, and it wasn't until season 3 that I'm like, oh, then I got to meet Riker, and it just to watch that, and it's just. But talk about someone who's everything you would hope that your hero would be. Man, he brightens every room that he walks into.
That's amazing. Tom Jr. Jackson says, fantastic episode and really cool insider info. Well, that's what we try and do here. Bring you some insider info, which is what we like to do. V says, the Gorn are one of the most powerful species in Star Trek. Will they come back in anything? Or going forward, how will the main character be antagonized? I think you're still talking about the Gorn. Look, I love the Gorn. I'm not a fan with where they took the Gorn in Strange New Worlds. They kind of retconned the Gorn to turn them into aliens, but I don't know how they go from Strange New Worlds to being spacefaring in the original series. But I like the Gorn a lot. I grew up loving the Gorn.
I love the Gorn. I love the idea that I still love that episode Arena, and
it's great.
It does a lot. And what I love most about that episode is the end of it, when all of a sudden you realize it's like, wait, we may be in the wrong.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's like that social commentary after the, things. And it's like, okay, wow, there's that other thing you went and did it. And I think that it's so interesting. So I don't work on Strange New Worlds, can't speak intelligently about if there's any more Gorn coming or whatever. So there's that. So.
Speaking of production design, the opening of Arena, when they first beamed down to Cestus 3, that giant exterior, that was one of the great moments in Star Trek history that they were able to pull that off, with pots exploding, and that was incredible.
But it was one of the first time they were actually outside, wasn't it? Like early in the season, they actually went to an exterior location.
Yeah. And they did like in Shore Leave and in This Side of Paradise This Side of Paradise, like the Elias Sandoval episode where Spock falls in love with Leela Kalomi. But that because you had the crazy, it looked like an alien starbase. It looked like a starbase on an alien planet. It was really, really well done. John Hiroshi says, the last Star Trek chat. It's been fun. Did you see Will Wheaton and Mike Okuda on the Enterprise D? I did. That was on the
after show.
The Ready Room show.
You gotta go watch on YouTube because they did it on the Ready Room. But there's another an extended version that they uploaded, which is has a 180-degree virtual reality feature on it, so you can pan around and look and see a lot more of the Enterprise D set.
It's amazing. Joe Panora says, if Terry does get to do another Star Trek, Dave, would you be a part of the team? Are you going to do more Star Trek? And thank you for being a champion of canon.
I'm not a champion of canon. I'm a champion of doing things the way I think it should be done. And I look at, it's a history show. It's like it's a historical drama. It's like let's just get the history correct. And it's like I think that canon and that thing. It's like it vacillates between what is and whatever, and it changes. But if you stick to the core of the idea, I think that's the most important part of things, because there's so many different things throughout Star Trek. Is it a Vulcan or a Vulcanian? It's like we get once you figure it out, stick with it and try and do it the best you can. But as far as would I work with Terry again? Definitely. The man has a passion, and we just actually we did the pilot for Witch Mountain.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
So we just did that. I relocated up to Toronto, in which my wife lives up here, and handy that they happen to do all the other Star Trek shows up here. So I'm in the right zip code for more Star Trek should it happen.
Our friend Six Scale Mafia says, Rob, I've got faith of the heart. No one's gonna bend or break me. I've got faith. Faith of the heart. Never heard that before. Thank you for that. Mikey Lito says, maniac for the minutia. I love that. We know a certain Viceroy of Verisimilitude who can answer that call. He should have Liz on the show. Yeah, your compatriot, obviously. Let me ask you this. I'm curious, like, overall, now that you've worked on Star Trek, your dream job, what do you think? Obviously, Star Trek has had great production designers, from Herman Zimmerman, Harold Michelson, I mean, all the way back. What makes great Star Trek production design? What is the overall philosophy behind it?
It's interesting, and I'll answer that by segue into. I don't know how much time we have.
We got as much time as you want.
Okay, so here's a story. Because COVID was such a pain in the ass, we couldn't. The idea of a drop-in, come by and we'll think, wasn't a possibility. You had to be tested off campus the day before, and to bring anyone in, even like getting Mike Okuda in to come, was a huge deal. So I wanted to invite a couple people to the set, but I floated it, and the answer was no, can't happen. So on a rogue Sunday, right before we were going to shoot, or actually I think it was right after we shot. I invited a couple of people up to look at the set, and I told them that I want to show them the new starship, the Stargazer that we're going to do, and I want to let them know. So I invited Dan Curry and Herman Zimmerman up to the set.
Wow. Okay.
And we had to go in a Sunday because that was a rare Sunday when no one was working, so I was able to sneak him in. So I got the work lights turned on so we could actually see what we're doing.
For people at home, I have to say that Dan Curry was one of the 2 visual effects supervisors for TNG. He designed the Batleth, and he made the Kurleth Worf sword for you. And Herman Zimmerman was the production designer who designed the Enterprise D bridge, the original back in 1987.
Yeah. So I didn't tell them everything that they would be seeing. I just told them that I wanted to shoot. And I said, I'm just such an admirer. I'd like to, and they were very nice. And Doug Drexler came up, and so I gave him a tour of the Titan, and was showing them around and all the different sets, and they were really complimentary. Oh, really thing. I said we're trying to evolve the evolution of the sets, and it's like we're not trying to change it. And Herman was just he goes, wow, this is better than anything we ever did. And he's like, and that was something he's like, yeah, it's like you took what we did and improved upon it. And the same thing that I did with Matt Jeffries, it's like, you evolved it and changed it, but it's like, it feels right. And as we finished the tour, I took him, and we had to like leave the soundstage and walking across the parking lot. I said, when I was designing this, my whole thing was, I don't want to leave my mark on this Star Trek. That's not my goal. My goal is to not fuck it up. My goal is to make sure that fans look at these sets and it should feel like Star Trek. It should feel like an extension of what you already did. And I've studied, I've lived, and I care so much about what you guys did, because when I'm looking forward, I have to look back. And as we were doing that, we turned into the soundstage. I said, I have one more thing to show you. And we walked onto the Enterprise D. And just like watching their faces, like, oh my God. They had no idea. It's like the whole idea like that would be in existence again was just like, and to show them. So for me to do Star Trek and to do all these things, I just want it to be like people like that. The biggest thing in your life is like, what if you got to achieve your greatest goal? Like you set this goal to do this thing. And it's like, oh my God, I got to do this thing, and then I screwed it up. It's like I was handed the ball to win the game, and it's like, okay, here you go. You finally got your dream job to go do Star Trek. What if you screwed it up? And my thing is, my biggest goal, my biggest thing, I didn't screw it up. And that, I'm like, oh, okay, I can live with that. It's like people liked what we did. It's like we brought the people back who did good Star Trek. We brought passion. We created cool stuff, and we made hundreds and hundreds of people cry. How awesome is that? So it's like I got hundreds of people emailing me saying, I cried. I remember watching it with my dad. I remember this. You got me through this hard time. And I'm like going, as an artist, that's the biggest thing you ever want to do. You're like, oh my God, I want to like go to Hollywood and like make Star Trek. Or I want to do something. But I'm like, the idea when I started this thing, I mean, I graduated high school in 86. So to go to film school in 86, and there was no Star Trek in 86. You had the movies, but they're not going to be out when I'm making movies. So it's like, there was no Star Trek. So the whole idea that after all that, come in and do the thing that actually makes everyone cry and do whatever, gives the emotion that everyone you're hoping to do, and have it be Star Trek. How cool is that? So that's my legacy. Yeah. I didn't fuck it up.
Well, you made a couple of guys here cry a couple times.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. I cried multiple times in the show.
Yeah, yeah. And Rob actually told me when he saw it, he told me, he said, "There's an episode like in the first half of the season, and I'm telling you, I lost it, and I knew it was coming. And when I saw it, it just completely,
I found the show sort of stealthily played on my emotions. I didn't, I'm watching it, and I've been as I told you, I have been a very vocal critic of modern Star Trek, and I wasn't. I got to see the show early. That's actually, I didn't even know Terry, and he was like, well, how do you? We kind of got into it on Twitter. And he didn't know how I'd seen the show, and he then he'd said something about he wanted to give the Next Generation crew a send-off, and I was being snarky and like, oh, what? All Good Things wasn't enough of a send-off? And then he complimented a movie I'd made, and I'm like, oh, that was, and I said, well, I really like 12 Monkeys, and then we became friends, and I ran into him at the John Williams concert when he brought his son, and, we started talking, and it was apparent to me how much he cared. And obviously I didn't realize that he'd worked in post on Deep Space Nine, and then I knew he'd worked for Brannon on Voyager and Enterprise, and he had such a pedigree, and he's worked on a number of different IP shows and things like Nikita and stuff like that. And I thought 12 Monkeys was a really great reinvention of the concept, and it's a terrific show, and it works like clockwork if you're a time travel fan, all 4 of those seasons. And he put so much. And I didn't realize what I think Star Trek Picard season 3 does so well. I hate the term member berries, but it really is about, I'm getting older, and it really is about people getting older and how do they deal with who they are, the legacy they've left to other people, how do long-standing relationships between old friends, how do you maintain them? And there's a lot of stuff that are not traditionally, Star Trek fans don't traditionally necessarily think about, but I think older fans, especially like myself, were really moved by the 3rd season because it dealt with a lot of issues that we're dealing with in our own personal lives.
Yeah,
and I didn't expect that.
I think that's what the entire Picard 3-season journey was supposed to be.
Right.
It's wrangling with Picard, and he's no longer the captain of the Enterprise. And what do we as people do, and how do we evolve into a different world? And that's what it started out. It's like, how do you do to focus on Picard as the man? And that's really what seasons 1 and 2 were focusing on him. And then, what Harry did say was just kind of that thing of going, Picard really as a man is now coming around to realizing that who he was defined by the Enterprise and the people and the family, and that family is out there, and that there was in season 1 and 2, he created a different family and a new group of people, but nostalgia in today's society, and I think with reboots and whatever, nostalgia is a tool, and it's a brush to use, and you can paint it like bad makeup, or you can wield it like an artist like Terry did, and you just hit just the notes like a symphony that just hit. It's like watching Picard do that thing where he tears up. It's like, and he just that nuance of like thing, and you're like, oh my God. We're all standing there on set going, oh my God, he just did that. You could see 40 years of history in that one moment. And it's like, there was like the little bits of, and as far as like the Easter eggs and things, it's like, that's an easy thing to do. It's like, we look at his chateau and there's all these things. It's like, well, the guy collected stuff. He collected the KURLAN on his bridge. He got it, left it there. Oh, he got the tapestry, left it there. He got the flute, he left it there. His ready room was filled with stuff. Why would he not have that stuff in his house? Why, it's like, and then it's the same house. It's been there for hundreds of years that we've now said. Well, why wouldn't the first thing we said? It's like, well, let's go back and watch the family episode. There's the plowman sculpture. I want that. There's that plaque over the thing. I want that. I want all these paintings. Put those in the house, because he would have kept these family heirlooms, and that we just kind of took that and went further. It's like there's for all the original series fans, in Sneed's little lair, we have these white things that you always saw in Dr. McCoy's sick bay, and what they're mutes for trumpets. But they just used them and put them behind glass, and they're just like shapes. And you're like, what is that thing? And it's like, oh, okay. Well, and Sneed says he collects things. So it's like, okay, we'll put some of those there. We'll do it. So, but it's like, these are memories, and these are things, and these are history, and these are the history of Star Trek. So I think that, and it's like, you go to like Daystrom, and it's like, there's all the little things on the door. They're all like in the background, but it's like, for people who care, they're there so that you can continue the journey and go a little bit further, so you have a little bit more fun. The ships, it's like the history of all the ships and all the different things. For people who don't care about them, they won't put it. It's like, but for people who care, they can get invested in it.
Well, the cool thing is that it enhances character too, right? Because in the very opening episode, when you first see Crusher on the Helios, the first thing you do is pan down through like the things she's kept that are important to her, right? Jack Crusher's briefcase, and an award, and she's listening to the log entry that Picard gave, during the Best of Both Worlds, right? And it's and these are obviously very important memories to her, and it shows, it tells you something about who these characters are. And that's what I love about what you did with the production design, and the thing that other people would call member berries or whatever. They're just subtle little things that, like, as you said, we all surround ourselves with the things that are meaningful and that remind us of what's important to us in the past and our family and friends. And it's just the satisfying thing for me was when Rob and I went to see this one. We were all there at the premiere at the Chinese theater, to sit down, and within the first couple of minutes, the first 5 minutes of that first episode, watching it on the big screen, I just felt myself just a relaxation kind of came over to me, because it was so immediately clear. Oh my God, these guys got it right. Like, they got it right. Like, and then I was all of a sudden excited and just completely open to the story that was being told. And it's a really hard thing to do, but at the same way, what you said earlier, it's really not the hard. You just have to get it right, and fans know what that is, and you put that care and love into it. And man, I speak on behalf of every Star Trek fan. Thank you for that.
It's like a simple thing, like in that first moment there, you pan and they go to the airlock. Yeah. I'm like, well, okay, that's an airlock. Put the symbol for airlock next to it, because there is one, and we've seen it for decades. Yeah, just put it on the wall and put. It's like, oh, there's gonna be numbering. It's like, okay, use the Wrath of Khan, numbering on the floor, and but everyone you're on a team of people. There's like the shorthand. It's like, I can say, oh, just put the Wrath of Khan, numbering that we saw on regular one. Yeah. Okay, great. And then but you can say, oh, get the airlock logo from the motion picture and do this, and then you can do that and have fun with that. And
Yeah. Well, and then you see Crusher, and she's wearing the jacket that evokes the away team jackets from Star Trek 2. And it's like, it's little teeny little things, but they just make you just, as a fan, you just go, oh my God, these guys got it. They know it. We are in good hands with these storytellers.
Well, also, like, even at the beginning when the camera's panning through the Helios and you see the log entry, like, Beverly had to go look up the coding so she could send the message. Like, and they don't explain it, but you look at it and you're like, well, why was she going back and digging up old, because she had to find what that code was to send to Picard, and it was just probably part of the information.
See, actually that's in. I knew we can sidebar and go back and ask that. I thought it was Jack researching because that whole, like, that little workstation there was set up to be Jack.
Well, maybe it was. I mean, maybe Beverly said, "Hey, you need to find this thing for me," and then he was looking it up, and because she needed to send the channel, whichever reason. But then they got attacked. And it was.
But then the great thing is that pays off later in the season, right? When you realize that Jack did go to try to find his father.
Yeah, well, because if you look at there's all these the spirals that we see Jack making. He's sitting at the bar, and they're all on that tabletop where the so the whole idea was that Jack was researching his father, or this whole idea, or trying to figure out who this Picard guy is, But So,
well, I mean, I think they would have talked. That Beverly would have said it wasn't just a last minute thing that she talked to Picard. She's like, we have to call Picard. He's the only person we can trust. So that's why they probably, in my mind, again, that's what I was thinking, that they together decided to do that. Because he knew. And that was what a great reveal at that, when he's sitting at 10 forward. And he you don't even realize he's there. Yeah. They did a lot of those great reveals when after he's been talking to these kids back and forth the entire episode. When Jack is revealed, you're just like, oh, I mean, that really, it really.
Yeah, and then you cut to Picard in that moment. He realizes that Jack was there, right? And it's like you can see the weight of the emotions on both of their faces.
Yep.
That's what I love, is all of this production design, all these little details that you put into everything you guys did, really just enhances the character and forms the character. It makes that whole world come alive for those characters.
Yeah. I mean, and it was fun. And it's like like I said, a lot more challenging doing everything during a pandemic. Season 2, oddly enough, was monumentally harder because we did so much location work.
Yeah.
Because there was, scenes like, with what's supposed to be hundreds of people at Starfleet Academy and things of that nature. So all the location work running around LA and whatnot. More difficult, challenging in a lot of different ways. But then but honestly, as a Star Trek person, season 3 Star Trek. I mean, it's like you want to be on starships and this and that, and it was season 3 is really just the pinnacle of everything I hope to do.
Well, Dave, I want to thank you for being here. I mean, I know we've kept you here for almost 2 hours. I very much appreciate you appearing on the show. It's been so much fun. We've had Christopher Monfett, Mike was here, Sean was here, Terry's been here, Stashwick has been here, and I really wanted to get you on the show to talk about all this, because I knew, and Terry speaks so highly of you, and I knew how much of a Star Trek geek you are, like we are. So it's been great to have this time to geek out.
Yeah. So I look forward to more Star Trek and whatnot. And it's really the beginning of a great adventure. And it's what I think is great is watching how people responded to season 3. And again, it was so different, for us as the artists, because we did season 2 and 3 back to back. It's like season 2 came out, and it did okay, whatever, but it was that thing of people like, oh my God, we want Star Trek Legacy, and it's like, yeah, for 6 months, no one was like going, oh my God, we need more Star Trek Picard. And it was like, okay, I'm gonna go watch season 3. It's like, but now it's like to hear so many people just go crazy for it, and they're like, oh my God, we want it now. I'm like, yeah, hire me, I'll start designing tomorrow.
Right.
So hopefully, I mean, the petition, I guess, is doing well, and I hope.
Well,
Who
and
knows?
now it's Paramount. It's not Paramount itself's not after that earnings call and the stock and the money.
Yeah.
I think that. But although Star Trek Picard season 3 cracking the top 10 of streaming shows.
Well, and if I'm correct, and I think that this came out, that was for episode 4, so we haven't even seen the ratings for the finale yet.
Wow.
So I think it's going to continue to do it, and I think that there was, and again, like COVID hitting, this writer's strike pops right at the beginning, right in the middle of the, hey, let's start developing something. That conversation can't happen now.
Yeah.
And it won't happen until this is resolved.
Yeah.
If it happens at all. But maybe that's the nail in the coffin, or maybe it's enough of a pause so that other things change and whatnot. So,
well, they did announce Section 31, and they've got that. Apparently, they've been working on that for quite some time. So maybe you'll work on that. Just make sure that Section 31 isn't so obvious with their uniforms and their membership cards. Hi, we're from Section 31. We're here to help you.
But Michelle winning Best Actress, that definitely.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Look, Star Trek is obviously very important to Paramount and CBS. So I mean, they've got to be aware. I mean, they got to be looking at the numbers for especially season 3 and going, okay, we hit something right here, and they would be crazy not to expand on that somehow.
It's just a matter of the logistics and looking at it. They have, we're about to see season 2 of Strange New Worlds.
Mm-hmm.
They've got the next season of Discovery already in the can. It's going to wrap up that whole thing, and then they're already shooting the next season of Strange New Worlds. So they've got Strange New Worlds, they've got Discovery, they've got Strange New Worlds, they've got Prodigy, they've got Lower Decks, and it wasn't in anyone's quiver until episode 1 of season 3 hit. It's like this whole legacy thing wasn't like in anyone's playbook, and all of a sudden now and then it grew and everyone's like, and now by the time it hit, now everyone's like, okay, now we actually have to talk about this because this is a thing. And it's a gift, because how often do you have a franchise where people are, saying, oh my God, we want this thing. Let's and to have the people who can, everything's set up, and it's like, well, we want a diverse cast with strong female characters. We want that, and it's like, here you go, and everyone loves it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to have 7 of who doesn't want to see Jerry Ryan captaining a starship?
Yeah, that's what it's like. We're doing the thing everyone wants us to do, and it started that thing where it's like a bunch of old white guys, and it's like, it's powerful, it's strong, it tells good stories, and just let us tell more good stories, and it's like, so I think that it's there, it's waiting, and but it everything takes time. People forget that season 3 took we finished that almost a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
So. And then it had been written, and everything. Writing takes a long time.
Yeah.
But hopefully, Terry has shown that because they developed season 3 in a short amount of time, and then we shot it and we turned it around, that we were able to do those things. And if we can turn one set into another set and show that what we did, the magic we did with season 3, we can do again. There you go.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's the strength of it all, is that season 3 is a very well produced season of television in terms of what you had to work with and what the results were. I mean, you got a lot of bang for your buck. So, and
it's all in the scripts were there, and the writing was there, and the heart was there, and and I think when you get that, and also going into another version of that, another season of that, you're going to get actors who work where before you may not have had a legacy character want to come in and do a day or a cameo or something. Now you will, because they want to be part of this thing.
Yeah, which is great. And to be able to do that, you could revisit Deep Space Nine.
You could do a lot of things. I mean, I did another show called The Boys, and when we did season 1, it was a superhero show, and we wanted to be like a real world thing and do product placement and put our heroes doing real ads, and no one would go anywhere near us because they're like, we've never heard of this thing.
Dude, the
And then
boys kicks ass. Come on.
Yeah.
and then by the
Yeah.
time you get
Come
to
on.
season 2, it was huge, and everyone wanted to be a part of it. But it's that thing of until like a show like Entourage, same thing. It's like first season, no one wanted to be in it. It's like Mark Wahlberg had to be a cameo in his own thing. But by season 7, you got James Cameron and everyone, because it's the cool thing to do. And I think that's what Star Trek Legacy would be. It would be the cool thing for all these people to say, no, they want to get on. They're gone.
Yeah.
Please.
By the way, shout out to your work on Justified as well, man. I love that series.
If you ever, I posted this a little while ago. If you're a fan of Justified, you will be a fan to know that Raylan's motel room, where he would lay his pretty head, sits exactly where the captain's chair of the Enterprise D is. So having designed both shows on the same, we actually had the same stages for Justified and Picard. So it was on the same stage that we built. Raylan's motel room was the Enterprise D, which is kind of cool. My career coming full circle there.
Before we let you go, I want to stress to everybody watching that if you're a fan of Star Trek, Dave's Twitter feed is a must see. At Dave Blass on Twitter, it's fantastic. Almost every single day, you're posting amazing little gems and artwork, and it's extraordinary.
No, it's true. I mean, I look
at the fans happy.
You do. V says, I love the 1967 Gorn. I haven't watched Strange New Worlds. Is there any chance that you guys are invited to do anything new? I think you should be involved in movies. Better than the Star Wars guy. Well,
anyone, my phone hasn't rang for about a year, so I'm open to working on just about any. If there's a mayonnaise commercial someone would recommend me for, that'd be awesome.
Wow. See, that's just crazy to me. In the Berman era, two shows. I mean, there is, I guess, 2 shows. It was interesting, though, that I know that Patrick Stewart, I think, wanted to shoot in L.A., but having the bifurcated productions, it'd be great to have Star Trek come back and be on the Paramount lot again. So everything was sort of contained. I mean, I understand why they shoot in Canada, but still.
Yeah, well, I think that's, fortunately or unfortunately, Toronto is the new Paramount lot.
Right. So, yeah, of course.
Yeah. So, they have the volume stages up there. They have both shows, and then Section 31 and Starfleet Academy are both shooting in Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
So they're, that's going to become the thing. So, as I said, bonus that I happen to live here and be a resident of the, so we'll see.
That actually reminds me, did you guys use the volume for anything with Picard at all?
We didn't. The challenge to the volume is that it requires about 20 weeks, if not more, to create the assets that go on the screen. And there was not a real need for it in season 2. Yeah. And by the time season 3 came around, we were done with the show in 20 weeks, almost. So we didn't have, we talked about it, but there was the idea of like, you need to know what's on the screen and have all those assets built, figured out what you're going to do, how you're going to use them before you get to there. So I think Orville tried doing it at one point and couldn't get everything built in time, and then you end up with the world's most expensive green screen because you just put green on the LED screen, and you're like, wow, that could have been done with a piece of fabric. So it's a challenge, and they're doing great stuff, but there's a time and a learning curve that we just didn't have the opportunity to wrangle.
Do you think if you did have the volume stage, you wouldn't have built the Enterprise D and you would have figured out a way to do it? You'd have a few foreground set pieces and done the rear of the set with the volume?
Hard to say. Again, having experimented recently with the Roddenberry people, I helped build the bridge that William Shatner sits in, so we recreated the motion picture bridge. So we built the command chair, some of the railings. You can do it. You just it would be limiting.
Right.
So
right.
I think that depending on how much you did it, you would. Yeah, I think the volume works great for bigger spaces. You would need a really tighter circumference version. in order to do it properly. So I think it would be a challenge, but I think, like many things, it's like let's give it a shot and see what we can do. It's going to work great for view screen shots where you have, you're talking to someone and that you want to have a ship behind them and you want to have, something of that nature, or, you want to have a short scene on something, so there's a lot of opportunities for it. But as far as the D goes, yeah, I'm just really glad we were able to do it and do it the way we did, because we were able to create something special.
Practical authenticity just always seems to sort of read better on camera.
It does, and I think like many things, it's still it's a new tool, and everyone's learning how best to use it.
Yeah.
It's like reflective surfaces, because if your floor is reflecting, it's cool because you get the interactive lighting. But then if there's something high up on the wall, it's going to reflect down here. But that thing that's reflecting should be 200 yards behind it, because so it's it's a game, and it's a tool, and everyone's learning how to use it. And I think that shows like The Mandalorian and Strange New Worlds are doing some great stuff with it. How give it 5 more years and people are gonna it's gonna be mind blowing.
Well, listen, Dave, thank you so much for being here. I very much appreciate your time and coming on the show. It's just been wonderful to have this conversation.
Thank you very much for having me, and sorry it took so long, and now I can't spoil anything.
No, we saved the best for last, man.
Exactly.
It was good. This was fun.
Well, thank you, and thank you to all your fans and everyone involved. And I've enjoyed the talks, and I felt horrible for Terry when he had to go into the big talk he had with everyone there. I was like, oh my god, you're going into the lion's den, and
he held his own.
Yeah, no, he was great. He did, he's like, it's that thing. He is a fan, and he wants to make good Star Trek, and I think that's the key thing, and I think people appreciate that, and even when we get things wrong, we know we're trying to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I've told people that I think that one of the things that's come out of Terry's involvement with Star Trek is people are going to go back and rediscover 12 Monkeys, because 12 Monkeys, the scripting on that, you had people like Christopher Monfett who worked on that show, the screenwriting and the preparation and the way they made those 4 seasons work together and how it was so intricately plotted. It's really great. It's a really impressive bit of television. I just recently rewatched it, and it's fantastic. And I think a lot of people who never saw it are going to watch it because of Terry.
Yeah, I think that it's like watching the Ron Moore's Galactica, and there's things you're seeing with Terry, and I hope it happens, because I like him as a creative force, and I just think that he has that thing that people. It's like you have a storyteller who has a good point of view and knows how to run and create stories that can be shot. And
right.
I think that there's so much entertainment out there, so many networks, so many things, and so many properties that it's like just someone needs to grab him right now and lock him into it. Like, here, give him something big to play with. Because I think 12 Monkeys was a tight budget, also shot up here in Canada.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a big blockbuster, and it's like, and nor was by the time you got rid of past the cast and everything we had on season 3, it wasn't a huge blockbuster. So it's like, that's the thing. You sit there going, that's the guy we want to give our next Marvel thing to, or a big Star Trek project. But Paramount got to look at it and go, okay, we need more. Taylor Sheridan has all his Yellowstone and his whole things, and all he's doing so many big shows, and it's like, because he gets it, and it's like he sees it, and he can speak to an audience, and whether it's Yellowstone or Mayor of Kingstown or the other one that he has with Stallone, it's like, oh, great shows, and it just have a tone to it, and it has a solid voice across the platform. I'm like, I think that's what Terry needs to do, to give him like a big piece of something to take over.
I think about a director like Ridley Scott too. Ridley Scott is a guy who he can put a lot of value on the screen, but he's a ruthless producer, and he knows how to get every penny on the screen and then some, right, in everything he does, which is why he's always making movies, right? And it seems Terry definitely seems to have that skill.
And he also, like, what I think what great television producers and showrunners and writer. I mean, he's a writer, director, producer. He's a multi-hyphenate. And I think one of the strengths that Terry has, and you really see it in 12 Monkeys and in Picard season 3, is a tightly scripted story over the course of 10 episodes, or in the case of 12 Monkeys, 4 seasons. And I think a lot of shows do not have that kind of tightly plotted, well-conceived storyline. And when you have that kind of vision, I'm sure, Dave, it makes your job easier because he has such a clear vision throughout all 10 episodes, the whole story of what he wants and where he's going. And the fact that I'm very impressed with how season 3 of Picard made use of that 10 forward set. You know, how it's both a practical set, the actual on Earth, and then it was also recreated in the holodeck. I mean, that's a great idea. And I can see some fans going, oh, but, you know, why not? I would imagine that people in the future, again, in my own brain, if you have a favorite place and you're a Starfleet officer, you just get the digitized version of it. You could probably, I'm sure that every bar, would you like a holodeck program of this bar? You could take it with you. You know, and people would do that with their favorite joints, especially if you're on a deep space mission. I mean, the reason the Enterprise D looked the way it looked was it was a 15-year mission, and it had to be comfortable. And the idea was everything about the Enterprise D made it to be a comfortable work environment. That's why it looked the way it looked, and that was form and function. And they talked about when you first saw how the D was developing, the design of the D was also supposed to be aesthetic. It was supposed to be beautiful. You know, literally a traveling work of art that represented the Federation.
Yeah, and if you think about it, it's like people are like, well, why would there be a 10 forward bar in the thing? I go, it's 400 years in the future. How hard is it for me right now with a couple clicks on my phone to pull up a 360 view of like any landmark in the world? And you sit there and you Google Earth, give a thing. I go, 300 years in the future. I go, in 300 years in the future, I'm going to be able to pull up a program where I can go to a virtual environment and go watch any band in history. I can go watch a Beatles concert from the audience and watch it all recreated based on footage and 3D recreations, and you will be able to experience all these things. And of course, it will be able to be done instantaneously, and you know, you'll have a microchip on your phone or your bag that brings all your favorite tunes with you. It's like, you know, it's like it's going to be there. So, you know, for me, that was the easiest, you know, little thing. It's like, okay, it's an easy thing. We're going to reuse it, and then, and the payoff, the last shot, you're back in the thing, and they're playing poker in 10-4.
I got to ask. You just reminded me. Did you intentionally clear Jameson to be in the bar? Because I'm a huge Jameson fan.
Oh, you are?
Yeah, I love Jameson.
Oh no, Terry had like Swafford. We added that because that's a 12 Monkeys reference.
Right. Okay.
But no, I think Jameson we just used to use. You know, if it was me, it would have been Pappy Van Winkle.
Right. Sure.
I'm actually a Kentucky Colonel. You can look that up. That's a verified fact. You know, I'm a Bourbonista, you know, like Riker.
Right. A Kentucky mash man.
Yeah.
Well, Buffalo Trace.
Yeah, which is good.
Well, I worked at Justified, and you got every you know, whiskey, every bourbon place in the world trying to get on Justified after like third season. So
I bet.
That'd be fantastic. Well, listen, I will let you go. Terry, Joe Panora, our viewer says Terry tweeted an hour ago that season 3 broke the top 10 again. So that's a tweet that he said in the last hour. So, breaking news.
Yeah. It's I think that what we did with the card scene 3 hasn't fully been realized yet with people, because it's going to be one of those things that now that the show is out and the fans have watched it, it's going to be like that thing like Galactica did where people who aren't fans of Star Trek are going to turn and watch it and go,
Yeah.
wow, that was really good.
Yeah.
Because you don't need to know anything about anything. And people that know, they're just like, wow, that was good TV. That's 10 episodes of the best TV you could possibly watch.
Yeah.
And it's going to get bigger. It's going to keep going. And there's going to be a momentum that's going to reach critical mass. And hopefully it happens soon.
By the way, the tweet is one of the quotes from the original source is, Picard is the only Paramount Plus original to make the chart twice since Nielsen added the streaming service earlier this year. So Picard did it before any of the Yellowstone, Taylor Sheridan stuff.
Wow,
that's not a small thing.
Well, that's a great thing.
Yeah,
that's a great thing. Well, listen, Dave, thanks for being here, and I could keep you here forever, but I should let you go because it's getting late where you are.
Oh, that's all good. So, but anyway, keep up the support, and thank you guys for helping spread the word about what we did. And obviously, people can find me on Twitter, and it's been a great 2 years of Twitter dealing with the fans, and it's like I think I've got to have a reputation of being one of the fans that if you clap at me, I'll clap back, but I'm not going to block you because I'm like, hey, I get it. You want good Star Trek? I'm here to make good Star Trek. We're trying to make good Star Trek. Help me, help you. And unfortunately, we didn't have any downtime between seasons 2 and 3. But you saw the internal corrections that we made. We didn't get audience feedback, but you can see that we figured out what we could do better at and whatever. And I think that the Twitter folks, we appreciate you. We love you. Everyone should be nice to each other, and God bless.
All right, sir. Thank you for being here.
All right. Thank you very much, and hope to see you on Star Trek Legacy.
Well, hopefully we'll do after shows for that too.
Yeah, that'll be a blast.
All right, I'll see you later. Bill, I'm keeping you here though.
I'll be here.
You
know what? I need to. Can we take just a couple second break and I just need to run and I've got a little frog in my throat.
Oh yeah, do that. I will chat.
Okay, I'll be right back.
I want to a great thanks to Dave Blass, and I want to thank I do want to give a big shout out to Terry Metalis for everything he did and all the help that he gave me and the support that he gave me and the support that I was giving him, because he made sure that his writing staff would come talk to us. Christopher Monfett and Sean Tretta and Matt Okamura, and getting Todd Stashwick on the show and Terry himself. So a shout out to everybody there. I mean, I know that my reputation about modern Star Trek, I have been a very vocal critic of modern Star Trek, even though everybody knows that I love Star Trek. I was as surprised as anybody else to love Star Trek Picard Season 3 as much as I did. I found it to be a very emotional experience, and it was earned. And what I really liked was, I thought it worked on an emotional level, a human level that I was not expecting. And as I've told people in the past, for me as a franchise, when I was a kid, when I was 5 years old and I started to watch Star Trek, and then I was lucky I got the animated series. So 22 episodes of the animated series. And then after that, the photo novels and the blueprints and the Franz Joseph technical manual and the Star Trek logs that were novelizations of the animated series. But I never thought that there would be any more Star Trek after that. And then suddenly, when I was 12 years old, I got the motion picture, and then Star Trek 2 and Star Trek 3 and Star Trek 4, and then the Next Generation and Star Trek 5 and Star Trek 6, and then Deep Space Nine and Voyager and Enterprise. So as I have grown up, I'm not even 57 years old, but Star Trek is turning 57 this September 8th. I guess September 7th if you're Canadian. But I've grown up with Star Trek, and to see Star Trek Picard Season 3, for me personally, it was Star Trek Picard Season 3 was kind of where I am personally in my own life. And it was something that I thought that's why I liked it as much as I did. It really resonated with me on an emotional level. Bill, I was just giving a little background into my love of the Star Trek franchise. And, I wanted, before I wanted to now that I've got you here, kind of, since this will be our last Star Trek Picard after show. I just wanted to get your feelings now that you've digested the series. We're a few weeks away from since it ended. And by the way, Terry did tell me there is not going to be a 4K of Star Trek Picard season 3. Because they didn't finish it in 4K. They only finished it in 2K. Yeah. And I understand that. I mean, I'm like, the thing is, there's a lot of movies that haven't been finished in 4K that we get up-res versions for, and we get Dolby Vision and Dolby Atmos. But I understand.
I would actually be very surprised. I mean, I know that's probably initially going to be the case. I'd be very surprised if that continues to be the case, because I suspect the Blu-ray is going to sell amazing numbers, and they would be crazy not to come back with a 4K. And as you said, even if it's a 2K finish, they can still upsample it, and you're going to get less compression. You're going to get high dynamic range, deep color. It makes all the sense in the world. And so that might be true at the moment, but I hope I have a feeling that might not be how it is forever.
Yeah. I mean, I hope not. I mean, I'd love to just get. By the way, as an aside, 200 Watt Studio here says, Rob, To Live and Die in L.A. has finally been announced. It's coming to 4K July 18th. Yes, I know. I sang that. I sang a song on Twitter tonight, left it for all of you beautiful people. It's been an ongoing joke for years. Not a joke. I'm serious as a heart attack about To Live and Die in L.A.
It's a holy grail title for you.
Did you see? Did you see that they're putting it on a? It's a triple layer
BD100.
BD100.
Yeah. I know it's going to be amazing. Kino Lorber their Studio Classics is doing some amazing stuff, man.
And it's a brand new transfer. Bring it on! And we're getting what is it? Fistful of Dynamite, the Sergio Leone.
Yeah, you're right. They just announced that as well.
They announced that too, and we're getting Manchurian Candidate.
Paramount later this year, I think, is going to do. Well, I know for sure Paramount is going to do Once Upon a Time in the West. I think this year, and you can already get it in 4K digital from Paramount, but it's coming on disc as well. So we'll have the whole Leone, Western canon on 4K. It's amazing.
Oh, can't wait. V, bless you. V says it's so great to see people down to earth and speak about this on that level. Your jobs mean a lot. Y'all great. Well, thank you, V. I appreciate that. But
by the way, you asked in terms of my thoughts on the season.
I wanted to get your what is your sort of summation of Picard season 3?
It feels it's hard to put in words, but just what a welcome thing, what a welcome, surprising, unexpected, wonderful gift to get as a legacy Star Trek fan, to just have this thing that I mean, we both love Star Trek and have grown up with it. And it was funny because in something I wrote about Star Trek and tweeted about, I said that, I grew up watching the original series on Channel 56 in Boston, and Dave replied immediately because he also grew up in Boston and watched the exact same thing, Channel 56. And, to have loved Star Trek as long as we have, to see Star Trek again, that very much is in keeping with and honors that sort of the Berman era Roddenberry kind of tradition, just in terms of tone and character and the look and the feel and the getting all the little details right. Because as we know, our friends like Doug Drexler and Mike and Denise Okuda and these people, have spent their entire professional careers doing exactly that, making sure that everything that made it on screen in Star Trek for the last 30 or 40 years prior to 2009 was just right, was exactly right. And to see that again, what a wonderful thing. I mean, what a wonderful thing. I just didn't expect it, and it makes me just feel I just this warm feeling when I think about it.
Well,
I can't wait to watch it again, revisit it on disc.
What's surprising is how good it is, how well it holds up to multiple viewings.
Yeah.
It's just
and
fun.
It's all about characters.
It's character.
It's 100% characters, and to see these people where they are now, where they had come from the past, and to see where they go now in this season, it really is. It's a pleasure. It's seeing old friends again, and I can't. I mean, between that and Andor, like I really feel like these childhood franchises that we love have gotten a whole new gear. They've shifted into a whole new gear somehow.
Yeah, I mean, an adult gear,
Yeah,
as opposed to, and that's what I love. And Mike Okuda. It's funny because Denise never likes me to mention this, but Denise Okuda was in the rec deck scene when Admiral Kirk was addressing the crew in Star Trek: The Motion Picture. She was on that set when they shot that scene, and Mike Okuda's first Star Trek job was working on Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home.
Right, doing the graphics for that. Right.
And if you think about that, a journey in Star Trek to go from 1985, 86 to go to 2021, 22.
Yeah.
And then working on For All Mankind. By the way, my For All Mankind season 1 DVDs or Blu-rays been shipped. God damn it.
They just came today.
God damn it.
They are. I haven't even popped them in yet. As soon as we're done here, I'm going to go downstairs and watch this. There are no extras. I don't know yet if they're region B only. They should be probably region B only. I don't know, but there are no extras. But it looks, it's all the episodes and 517. I can't wait. And by the way, the cover artwork is ridiculous. The cover artwork is this sort of manufactured, has nothing to do whatsoever with what's on the show.
What company put that out?
Well, it's Dazzler, and I'm sure there's a reason, because the original artwork they teased was very much like show artwork, and I'm sure there's some kind of reason why they had to shift. But you can see it's a Sony Pictures because Sony is the production company. So I can't wait, man. I'm going to spend my weekend watching these, and I'm going to review these bad boys on Monday. I can't wait to crack into that.
The last hour of season 2, dude.
Oh man,
what a barn burner!
Yeah, For All Mankind. We've talked about this before, but For All Mankind, for my money, is the show that has taken the baton from Star Trek.
Yeah,
it is. It feels very much to me, not just because a lot of people who worked on Star Trek and Battlestar Galactica are involved in this show, but For All Mankind is fulfilling the dream that I think was Enterprise originally. The idea of Enterprise was to show how we get from a more modern day kind of take on space travel to that Star Trek future that we saw in the original series.
Can you imagine if Enterprise had been For All Mankind? The first Warp 5 ship, and Enterprise, was of the Berman era, the show that was most interfered with by the network.
Yeah. And what they originally wanted to do was that the entire first season was about getting the ship ready and putting the crew together and getting ready to get out there and launch and get out into space for the first time. And it could have been amazing. And there's much I still like about Enterprise, as uneven as the show is.
Yeah.
But For All Mankind is very much the genius of it is that every season is a new decade. And it starts with what, the sort of interesting question is, what if the Russians had beaten us to the moon in 1969? And it goes from how would America have reacted? How would the world have reacted? How would NASA have reacted? And the idea is that NASA would have, we put pedal to the metal, and it's like, okay, now we're on a race to build a base on the moon, to get to Mars first, right? And everything would have happened faster in history, including social change throughout society, right? And it's the idea that each one of these seasons takes us farther into the future. And over the next couple of seasons, this last one was in the 1990s. The next season we're going to see will be in the early aughts. And I think, there's a 7-season plan that basically takes us to a world where human beings are probably on the verge of encountering the first, extraterrestrial intelligence and leaving the solar system for the first time. And so all of a sudden you've seen a reasonable historical, basically a roadmap of how we could get from the kind of world we live in today to a future that looks more like Star Trek. And that's what I had hoped from Enterprise all along, was to see that. And For All Mankind is doing it, and it's phenomenal.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, the idea of the social change, especially, and there's things in it like NASA owning its own patents,
right,
for all the technology it builds, so it pays for itself, and how the government can't control what they do. They're their own organization because they don't rely on government funding to.
Right.
I mean, and in a way, it's kind of. I mean, I hate to say this now, but we did. After we landed on the moon, the task was over. The political fight with Russia was won.
Right.
And so
And so the budget just collapsed. There were all these plans that NASA had for what might come next, and the budgets and the interest just collapsed politically.
And it politically collapsed, but also, I mean, again, it's all very short-sighted. And what I also love about For All Mankind is the undercurrent of the greatness of what America could and should be.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, and it's like, this is the America that I thought that I was growing up in.
Yeah, and to a larger extent, humanity as a whole, right?
Yes.
All of the nations kind of united, because we see a lot more cooperation happen earlier on this show. And it's interesting because the second season, not to give anything away, but it's the second season takes place in the 1980s, and it's very much like what if the Cuban Missile Crisis had happened on the moon instead of on Earth. And it's so fascinating. It really just it's a fun show. It's smart. It's smart in the same way Picard season 3 was, and smart in the same way that Battlestar Galactica was, the Ron Moore's Galactica. Everything is well thought out. I have no doubt that the producers and the writers know exactly where they're going with the whole run of the series. It's just so satisfying to watch. And you're right. It's got these great moments of drama that are just, they feel like they come out of nowhere, and they leave no stone unturned. They build everything organically. It's so smart.
But what I also like about it is they're not afraid to dip into high melodrama either, because you're dealing with exceptional people, and they would have exceptional emotions and all that. I mean, season 3 went a little far into that, but it doesn't bother me. I mean, what I also really liked is, I love in the movie The Sum of All Fears, the Jack Ryan film with Ben Affleck playing young Jack Ryan.
Yeah.
I love that there's the back channel Russian guy who is friends with Morgan Freeman's character, but Morgan Freeman's character dies, and then at the end the Russian guy shows up and says we have Spinnaker. Yeah, we have back channels. And I love the fact that it became a plot point, but that we ended up saving, one of our characters saved Russian lives.
Yeah.
And was said, look, and risked life and limb. And certainly we don't know where that's going to go yet.
Right. Exactly. But the show uses, to your exact point, the show uses real historical events in a very, very clever way.
Yes.
And some of them happen similarly to the way they happened in our history. And some of them have a little bit of a different spin that sort of turbocharges the drama. And, the interesting thing is that we're talking about the melodrama, it's because this isn't initially, at least, it doesn't feel like a science fiction show. It's an alternate history show.
Right.
You've got test pilots, right? The original astronauts are test pilots. They're all men, just the way it really was in the 1960s in NASA. But then all of a sudden, the Russians put the first woman on the moon, and so NASA suddenly, like a decade earlier, during the Apollo program, says, "Oh my gosh, we have to bring women into the space program, and Black people, and we've got to." And so everything just moves faster in society in a way that is both good and also causes conflict, as we see in the show.
Well, and it also. I mean, they talk about doing representation right.
Yes.
Here's a show where it's not just appeasing people that want to feel better about themselves. You're dealing with why representation, why it really matters.
Right.
And it matters to evolve the state of the human species on Earth. That people have existed since the dawn of time that are this particular way.
Yeah.
And whether it's your sexuality, whether it's your ethnic background, whatever, everybody is deserving. And in terms of putting women forward, people of color, LGBTQ, it's got and for my money, the best representation on television.
Yeah,
and
it's
done in the way it should be done.
Correct. And done the way Star Trek has always done it.
Yes.
Right? Like, just it is these, every kind of person that makes up the panoply of humanity is there in the future and has a part in the future and is respected in the future, and we don't, it's not, everybody just fits because they belong. And that's the way Star Trek has always done this. And I think it's smart, and it really feels, For All Mankind, it feels to me like the end of that show in thematically, at least. It just feels like it's going to like just match right up to the beginning of Star Trek in a very interesting way.
Yeah, I mean, I think if they make it 7 seasons, I mean, obviously we're getting season 4. I think it's inevitably going to lead up to First Contact.
I think you're absolutely right.
And
because season 4 will be the early aughts, so then the end of season 5, season 6 is going to reach the present day, right? And then you could go another, 6 and 7 would go into the future.
What I want to see is how they're going to deal with what are the ramifications on Earth and maybe we're not going to actually meet that civilization. And the show, in my mind, if the show, we will have irrevocable proof that we are not alone,
that they're out there somewhere,
and that we are going to one day be able to find them, because the distances, we don't have the technology to get there, but the dialogue will have begun. To me, that's the natural ending place of where the show is going, and it will end on that optimistic note.
And it's quite, I mean, and the whole idea of it is, I mean, it's quite literally the show that I've been waiting my entire life to see, because it's the missing piece from Star Trek, right? It's that, how do we get from here to there with all our problems and all of our issues and all of our, because you posted the other day, and this is a quote that I've always loved, a really good E.O. Wilson quote, which is that, that human beings have Paleolithic emotions, and I think it was like dark ages sort of institutions and godlike technology, and that combination is a huge problem for us as we move forward, right? Well, because our human nature, our emotions, the way we deal with each other, the way we think about ourselves is always the last thing to evolve, right?
Well, and I, to be honest, I mean, in my lifetime, I think we have devolved, especially over the last 10 years.
It certainly feels that way.
When I was growing up, I mean, I had friends of all shapes, sizes, colors, creeds, sexualities, religious preferences, and it was not an issue, and we were all moving like one of my oldest friends in the world that we were 2 years old, and we shared our backyards were finally our dads and put a gate between our backyards so we could play together. That friend of mine is literally the oldest friend I have on the planet Earth. He's gay, and he was one of the first people to get married when gay marriage was first legal in California. And then they rescinded it, and they had wondered, and he's been with his husband for 25 years or something. But now, I mean, you see where identity politics and all this is being used as some kind of a cudgel. Like join our team. And it's like we were on a great evolutionary path where acceptance was happening on a natural level.
We should all be on the same team.
Well, yeah, the human race is one race.
We should all be on the same team. Exactly right.
And I think that we were going that way. And I feel that over the last 10 years, something has really derailed. And
I think a lot of it has to do with social media and algorithms.
100%.
And it's, now all of a sudden traditional media is competing with social media for eyeballs and for ratings and advertising dollars, and so everything has gotten more sensational. And it's, look, man, when you go on television and you scream and rant and say, hey, everything that's wrong in your life is they're responsible, and we've got to like team up against them. I mean, we've been hearing that drumbeat for 30 years now in the media and on social, recently on social media.
And the truthful nature of human experience is being subverted in order to make it your team and my team, and like you said, we have one team. And we have a future that's coming at us like a locomotive.
Right.
And we need smart, serious people. Who are open-minded, who are capable, who are highly educated, and it's not about your team or my team. It's about what are we doing in terms of the globe.
Right. And that's exactly right. And you and I mean, politically, you and I are both left of center. Right, if you've got the center right here, you and I are probably slightly left of center.
Yeah, I mean, I consider myself a classical liberal that is left leaning, but I'm kind of shocked by where the left has gone.
Well, yeah, and that's what I was going to say is like, and we have friends who are slightly on the right side of center. What it feels like is, here we are in the center. It feels like the extremes on the left and right have just gone like this, And so we haven't really changed. And I think most people haven't really changed our worldview. It's just that the extremes have gotten more extreme. And so most of us are kind of in here somewhere trying to hold everything together a little bit, or just trying to, like, kind of tune out some of the more extreme, crazy things that are happening on both sides. And we really need to. I've yet to meet a person who is a conservative, even someone like very far. I would consider very far to the right, that I couldn't sit down with, and over a meal or over a beer. Once you get past all the but what about, you go, well, listen, man, we all care about the same stuff, right? We all care about, like, the future of the country and future of the world, and we want to make, things better for people. We want our lives and our families' lives to be better, and we want our neighbors' lives to be better. At the end of the day, we all care about the same things. It's like we've got to stop letting these people, like, short circuit the conversation and start having a lot more conversations in here.
Well, yeah, but I think what's happened with social media is, I've spent my life looking outward.
Yeah,
I've never expected. I mean, I know who I am. I've always gone out into the world. And you meet the world. You meet the world head on. You don't expect. I do not expect. Like, if I go out into the world, I don't expect anyone to know anything about me.
Yeah.
I don't expect them to know. And what's so weird is now we have a group of people, because of social media, that expect the world to bend to their will.
Right.
Like,
right.
I identify in such a way now. All of you out there, you better talk to me the way I want to be. I'm like, I don't even know where that comes from.
Right.
When I went out,
or you all should be afraid of the same thing I'm afraid of, or you all should make a safe space for me that, like, is right. And it's like, I mean, we grew up at a time where, you just went out of the world, and the world was what it was. And
the world was not going to change. The world was going to beat the shit out of you, and you had to go meet it head on. And the way you met it head on was to know who you are,
right?
To have strength of character, strength of self, and go out into the world. And when you heard things, when you would suffer the slings and arrows, you pulled them out, you put some Neosporin on the wounds, and you went back out. And
you had the courage of your convictions to stand up against some of those things and speak out a little bit when you felt like, hey, this is, when you saw someone being mistreated, you just, hey, that's not right, man. Like, stop it. Like, this is ridiculous.
It's the exact opposite. People expect the world to be that's what I don't understand.
I wonder though, if it is really like that, and there's no doubt in my mind that it is, to a certain extent, more than it used to be. But I still feel like there's a lot of people just like us who feel the same way we do.
It's true. I think there's a lot of bandwidth given up to a lot of people talking loudly.
Yeah.
And another thing, there's a lot of people, there's a lot of gotcha going on.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that want to get other people either in hot water. I've never understood that at all. I mean, I don't. It's like, I'm going to go run and tell on you. And I'm like, why are you so concerned with what have I offended you? Why don't you go do something? Go contribute to the world. Right. What have you done today to make the rest of our lives better?
Before rushing to judgment, just take a moment to ask yourself, are you really sure that what you think is true? Take a moment to, like, look a little deeper, and rather than taking something that someone said completely out of context and blowing it up into something else, go back and try to understand the context and understand the human being a little bit, right? Because there's nobody online, there's nobody on this planet whose shit doesn't stink.
Yeah.
Right? Nobody's perfect. Everybody says stupid things occasionally.
It's true.
But by and large, most people are good people.
That's what I've discovered, and I think traveling and meeting people around the world, I've felt that way.
Yeah.
There is a lot of truly evil going on in the world, but I think that good usually will prevail. I mean, that's another thing. I think that we have to start thinking in terms of the future, and that's what I love about For All Mankind. The time jumps make you very aware that, okay, every season is 10 years later.
Yeah.
So when you're watching the show, it's really interesting to see where society is.
Yeah.
And they do a really good job setting the stage at the beginning of each of the 3 seasons. That's why I can't wait to see. I have no idea where season 4 is going to go.
I have a little bit of an idea, and I can't wait.
I can't wait either. I just can't wait. Eternal Vigilance. First of all, Tony Reyes says, growing up with TNG and seeing these characters together again for one last adventure was something special. I think so too. It was a great gift I didn't think I was going to get.
Yeah.
So Eternal Vigilance says, I hope we all get more high-quality Trek and get to continue having these kinds of after shows. I look forward to them every week. Great stuff, guys. Well, Eternal Vigilance, that's very nice of you to say. Thank you so much. Well, Bill, we are going to do it for All Mankind after show.
We are indeed. And if we time it right, we can go through all 4 seasons or all 3 seasons that have been released so far. And we can do it in such a way that we are done just as season 4 is arriving on Apple TV, which I think is my guess is going to be 3rd or 4th quarter this year, because Apple TV just announced that the 2nd season of Foundation is coming, I think, in July.
Right.
So my guess is that's going to run for, that'll be a couple months. So then we're looking at maybe November, October, September timeframe, which would be perfect.
They'll probably announce the release date at San Diego at Comic-Con or something.
Yeah, you're probably right, which is perfect because that gives us plenty of time to talk about these episodes and bring more fans on board. And really, it really is. If you love Star Trek, it really is sort of the heir apparent to that.
It really is. And free Margot. That's all I can say. My favorite redhead. Come on now. But we'll see. I mean, it's going to be really interesting. Really interesting.
Yeah, it really is. The show surprises me. Every season has surprised me in a very good way. And
I really love the characters.
Yeah.
I mean, it's and Joel Kinnaman. I mean, how Joel Kinnaman's got to be like Ed Baldwin's going to be what, in his 70s?
He's got to be. Yeah, he's definitely got to be. Yeah, I would think pretty close, 60s, 70s.
Yeah, because with season 4, we will have now been 4 decades, and he was like in his 30s when we met him because he flew in Korea.
Right.
So the next season's the night. Was it?
No, the 90s was the third season.
Okay,
so this would be the early aughts.
So I mean, he has to be in his 70s because he flew in Korea.
Which is great because now the show, by moving forward every decade too, the show can keep introducing new characters, right? That we move forward with, and we watch the evolution of their lives, and it's a really good piece of work, man. It's a really good show.
Well, all right, sir. I'm going to go have some dinner and do some work and feed the dogs.
You've got a bunch of dogs to feed, my friend.
I have a bunch of dogs to feed. I got 5 kids to feed. I got 11 dogs to feed. Yeah, but it looks like we might have one has been taken already, and it looks like we've adopted 3 more.
Outstanding.
And so, if you want a nice Mother's Day present, we have 4 of the sweetest, nicest, most loving, cute dogs in the world. They have been raised. They're 10 weeks old today, and they are amazingly loving puppies. I've never met some puppies that are as loving. So if you are interested, you can go to Gilbert_and_Tallulah on Instagram. See the latest photos, and if you're interested, they ain't cheap, but they're great dogs.
And then Rob's been posting great video on Twitter and here on the channel as well. It's just fun to watch him run around. Some of these videos you're just like being swarmed by a little army.
Oh, and they love me. They will, if I go, they follow me. It's a swarm. I used to call it the parade with our 3 dogs, but these to have 7 puppies now, they literally, I have to be careful where I step. Because they come up and the funniest thing is I sit down and they just swarm over me, and it's actually kind of a great. I've never experienced that before.
I know it's funny. I know what you mean about watching where you step, because we have all throughout our house we have dark carpet and dark hardwood floors, and we have a cat. Our newest cat, we got him a couple of years ago. His name is Murph. He's this black fluffy. He's got
Murph
3
because
legs.
of Interstellar.
No, Murph just
Okay.
it just worked. It just whatever we were, it's that thing you struggle for a name, and then when suddenly the name just clicks, right? So it's Murphy, and we call him Murph, and he's but he's dark. He's black, right? Black and fluffy. So if you're not looking where you're going and the lights are low or lights are out, you can totally step on him. And he's got 3 legs, right? So he's, and what you would think would slow him down, but he flies around this house faster than anybody else in this house. He goes up on top of cat trees, on top of my bookcases. He's hilarious, but you definitely have to watch where you're going sometimes.
Nice.
Animals are good. Animals are just good.
They are good, which is amazing.
Well, dude, this has been fun, man.
It's been fun.
NAISKOS. This has been a fun. It's been a fun season of Picard, and it's been fun having all these great guests on to talk about it. And it's been fun just talking about this show with you every week. It's been great.
No, it's been great. But we should start. I mean, it's going to be 30 weeks before. I mean, 30. It'll take us 30 weeks to get through, and you know, May, June, July. Well, we're halfway through May almost. So if we started like June, July, August, September, October, 5 months.
That's right about in there. I mean, let's we'll talk over the next couple of weeks here, and we'll get it all worked out, and then we can start. We can do like a little watch party or whatever, and we can just talk about each episode each week, and people can watch along with us every week, and it'll be good. Then we'll have some good guests on.
Yep, we'll get all the actors and get all the writers. You know, start. So hey, if you know anybody, tell them. If you know anybody that worked on the show, I want to get as many people as we can. You know,
it'll be great. Yeah, and we obviously know the Akutas, and I think we can get some of the astronauts who are consult with the show, and there's all kinds of cool things we can do.
Yeah, definitely. All right, sir. Well, I will let you go, Bill. And to everybody, I want to thank our moderating staff. I want to thank Tom Jr. Jackson for moderating the show. I think Lord Toth was here earlier. I don't know if he's still here. Tom Jr. Jackson is a great moderator, and Bella the Beast. Bella the Beast was here. So thank you for that, Bella the Beast. I appreciate that. And I want to thank Justin Toner was here. I want to thank everybody for supporting the chat via super chats, supporting the show via super chats and tips. And for all of you members, we will be having a member call on Saturday, I believe at 11. It might change though, because I have some people coming over to get puppies, but plan on that tentatively 11 o'clock Monday. So yeah, there you go. All right, Bill. Remember, every person you meet has a story to tell that you have yet to hear, and all you have to do is listen. And Picard Season 3, the KURLAN NAISKOS, we're out. We're out. And, okay, guys. I have nothing more to say on this. And we are out. Didn't make much money